It was the type of thing where we had 2 years ago, Florida State was undefeated, won the conference and got excluded from, that was only 4 teams then got excluded. You know, that was a huge, huge issue, and really was a black mark for the whole college, the politics of this. And then, so this one, you know, you had kind of Notre Dame, Miami, similar records, but, you know, we had a game here, right? And they did that. You know, my son is in 2nd grade. He's all he cares about is Florida State. Well, they're not making it, right? So I was like, well, who do you think should make it? There's 2 slots, Miami, Notre Dame, and Alabama. He says, Miami and Notre Dame. I was like, well, why not Alabama? He's like, because 2 years ago, Alabama took Florida State's spot in the playoff, and he's still not over that. So, you know, so we'll see. So I wish them well. You know, we haven't had a team make the playoff for a while. I think Florida State made it the first year of the playoff. The University of Florida's never made it. It's the first time the U has made it. So I wish them all the luck in the world. I think it's very, very exciting for the community down here. We have done a lot, as Jeanette mentioned, on environmental restoration. This was something that a lot of people cared about. There wasn't a lot of momentum behind it, particularly with respect to Everglades and the springs and the Indian River Lagoon and in Biscayne Bay. So we put our money where our mouth is. We set out to do the most ambitious program that the state has ever done. We not only met those expectations and goals, but we've exceeded those expectations and goals. And we are looking at historic support for these restoration projects. We've done things like the C-43 and the C-44 reservoir. We've done our part of the Everglades agricultural area reservoir, and we even did a historic agreement with the Trump administration so that they delegate some of the federal projects to us to complete, since we do it so much quicker in Florida. And so we've broken ground on 2 major projects already, and I don't think those projects would have broken ground for years had we not gotten it. And so now, because of that agreement with the Trump administration, the completion date on all of the EAA south of the lake infrastructure is now moved forward 5 years. So under Biden, it was going to be 2034. Now we got it for 2029, and that's going to really be a historic thing. So we have funded more than 1,174 projects across the state designed to reduce harmful nutrients in our waterways, massive reductions in nitrogen and phosphorus each year. We have completed more projects than has ever been completed in this time frame. And I think people look to see what's going on in the Everglades, and they're very, very pleased with really the tangible accomplishments. I mean, you look at Biscayne Bay, you look at the salinity there, it's changed for the positive. Why? Because water's moving down south like God intended, and it's now reaching there. It's a natural filtration system. You need this. You even see the flora and fauna in the Everglades. People are noticing some of the things that they hadn't seen. Hopefully even more as we get more of these pythons out of there. You know, we got huge increase in python removals now this year. So we have a new program, and we're going to keep doing all of that. So we have done major stuff for the Florida Everglades, but we've also done things for water resources writ large, not just simply Everglades, but a whole host of other things. The Indian River Lagoon has been a huge thing. Florida springs. I mean, if you go to different parts of the state, we have the best springs of any place in the country. Major restorations that have been done there. Now, here in South Florida, one of the things we've done that is related, but not the same as Everglades restoration is the reduction or the restoration of Biscayne Bay. And we launched this project, I think in 2021, and after today's award, grant awards, we will have reached $100 million in support for Biscayne Bay restoration. So we will be awarded today we'll be awarding $20 million in grants and aid for the Biscayne Bay water quality improvement projects. These grants will support a total of 8 projects, including 6 new projects and supplemental funding for 2 existing and expanding projects. And the recipients include Miami-Dade County, cities of South Beach, Homestead, and Miami Beach, North Miami Beach Water, and the town of Cutler Bay and Miami Shores Village. So these projects include septic to sewer conversion, wastewater storage projects that will lead to improved water quality of Biscayne Bay. You know, what we've already done has made a difference. I mean, people are very pleased with that, but we're not done, and we're going to continue to do that. And there have been a lot of applications that came, and basically the department selects the ones that are going to have the biggest impact on what we're trying to accomplish. Also today, we're awarding $9.5 million in grants and aid for Florida's Coral Reef Restoration and Recovery Initiative. As the home of the continental U.S.'s only living barrier reef, we have worked very hard to protect this natural treasure. Since 2014, the reef has experienced an outbreak of stony coral tissue loss disease. It's progressed rapidly to affect the entire reef ecosystem. In January 2023, we established through executive order and this initiative aimed at developing the infrastructure, technology, workforce, and logistics necessary to support long-term recovery of Florida's coral reef. So today we'll be funding 11 projects. They were prioritized and awarded based on impact of scaling up land-based coral infrastructure and capacity. Recipients for this will include Sea Foundry, the Florida Aquarium, CAIR Corporation, Mote Marine, Reef Institute, Plant a Million Corals Foundation, Reef Renewal USA, Newfound Harbor Marine Institute, Fish and Wildlife Foundation of Florida, and higher education institutions like Nova Southeastern, University of Miami, and Florida Atlantic University's Harbor Branch Oceanographic Institute. So this will help both the academic and private partners that are doing research to establish, expand, and maintain Florida's in-state coral propagation and grow-out facilities. So I want to thank the folks in the legislature who've been supportive of these initiatives over many, many years. I mean, we started in 2019, and it was a little bit different than the muscle memory that they had been doing in terms of how they handled some of the stuff. And there was a little bit of trepidation, and we're just like, you got to do it. And we had some great champions in the legislature. And then after we did it a year or two, we got a lot of momentum, had huge support through the years. And I think this is something that is really, really meaningful. So, you know, as the state of Florida is reducing taxes on people, as we're paying down, we've done accelerated debt repayment. You know, we now hit reducing our state taxpayer supported debt by 50% just since I've been governor. Out of all 180 years of our history, we've knocked out 50%. We're doing a whole bunch of other things with maximizing the rainy day fund, doing a lot of great stuff. And by the way, our budget's less than the budget of New York City, which only has 8 million people. And that's before Mendami takes over the grocery stores. That's going to cost more. I'm telling you, it's not going to be pretty. But so we've done all that and been very fiscally responsible, and yet we've done historic support for these initiatives for conservation and environment, and we're really showing how it's done. And I'm proud of the folks that have been involved, because you know, the fact that we have the Army Corps and the Secretary of the Army and some of these folks saying, look, we know Florida's faster. We know Florida gets it done. We want to work together. We want to empower you guys. So for them to be block granting the money for those federal projects, and we're taking the lead on those, you know, that is a really, really great team effort, and we're making huge, huge progress. So thanks to everybody involved. Alexis, come on up.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, President Nunez and FIU, for hosting us here this morning. It's great to be here on windy Biscayne Bay. Few places in Florida show the connection between our environment and our economy more clearly than this one. The bay supports millions of Floridians, including one of the busiest cruise ports in the world, and it plays a vital role in the health of Florida's coral reef. Together, the bay and the reef generate $64 billion in economic output and support 440,000 jobs in the region. Under Governor DeSantis' leadership and with the support of the Florida legislature, we're taking decisive action to protect these waters and the communities that depend on them. Today's awards build on the coordinated effort launched in 2021 with the creation of the Biscayne Bay Commission, which brings key stakeholders together to carry out a clear plan for restoring this vital resource. Since then, as the governor stated, we've awarded $100 million through the Biscayne Bay Water Quality Improvement Grant Program to reduce nutrient pollution, improve wastewater systems, convert septic systems to sewer, and strengthen stormwater management. Improving water quality here is also critical to what lies just beyond the bay, Florida's coral reef. We're investing $9.5 million to advance coral propagation and restoration to help reach our goal of restoring 25% of Florida's coral reef by 2050. Through this initiative, DEP and our partners are now propagating tens of thousands of resilient coral colonies each year and restoring critical reef-building species. With continued support from Governor DeSantis and the legislature, we will keep making Florida, making real measurable progress for Florida's coastal waters. Thank you. Drew? I'm gonna take this. It's bad.
Thank you, Governor. I'm Drew Bartlett, Executive Director for the South Florida Water Management District, and $64 billion economy coming out of Biscayne Bay for the state of Florida. That's a big economy, a lot of jobs. But I didn't need a study to tell me that, because my wife and I, we plan a trip to Biscayne Bay every year. And in my last interaction, I was like, honey, I'm making the reservations on the hotel for Biscayne and Miami. She said, make sure you get the bay view. I'm like, okay, checked it. Honey, it's more expensive. I love you too. I guess we're gonna get the bay view. All right, so because it's important to people, it's important to economy, this type of thing. And I've been in the water business since 1992. I started when I was 5. Yes, I know I look young. But what we learn over those years is that infrastructure investment is what is necessary to protect our environmental resources. And for the first 29 years of my career, there was none of this money going into Biscayne Bay, right? It only happened under you, Governor DeSantis, where you started this. You say, look, this bay is important. We need to start bringing state dollars, partnering with the local governments to get this infrastructure investment. And now we're up to 30.
Continuing to hear more, this is Drew Bartlett, the Executive Director of the South Florida Water Management District, speaking now at this news conference where the state announced $20 million in grants for Biscayne Bay water quality improvement projects. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to get you back to this news conference. Governor Ron DeSantis in North Miami Beach. He is back at the podium here talking more about some of these efforts, and also expect him to take questions here shortly. So let's go ahead and listen in.
Well, I welcome the lawsuit. First of all, I get roll out of bed anymore. Someone's suing us for. I mean, it's like, some of it's just lawfare, right? But we welcome that. I mean, we did do the designation for both the Muslim Brotherhood and CAIR. This is something that has been a long time coming. I know the federal government's now working in a similar direction. The legislature is working on statutory laws that are going to impact this area. So I think our executive order is kind of the beginning. I think you're going to see statutory codification of how we handle different terror designations. But I welcome the lawsuit, because what will happen is that will give the state of Florida discovery rights to be able to subpoena the bank records, to be able to do that. And honestly, it'd give us even more reason, I believe. And so this is something that I know our Attorney General is ready, willing, and able to be fighting on this. And so that's they have every right to sue, and then we're going to have a right to get the information that we need to make sure. But our agencies are on notice about how any of our programs or any of our operations are impacted or not impacted, and so the extent that they can be, then they're going to have a basis to be able to protect the people and the taxpayers from that. So I'd stay tuned there.
What's your belief that they have ties to terrorist events?
Well, first of all, people forget, CAIR was an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial. It was the largest terror financing trial in the history of the United States of America. And like the idea that, if there were any other situation where that happened, people would be up in arms, but somehow that's just something that just gets forgotten. So there is strong basis, and a lot of it's financial. There's no question. A lot of it is financial. That's why I think a lawsuit is something that we very much welcome for that. But I would expect there to be some follow-on legislation. I know we've got a lot of members of the legislature have been really working hard on these things. And I think Texas, if you look, I think Texas did before the federal government announced. And so Texas has a little bit more robust architecture in their statutes than Florida does. I think you're going to see the legislature probably mirror what Texas has done, and ultimately, that's going to be in the best interest of the people. But the money is really significant, and look, we may get a lot of information on this if they bring the lawsuit. So we're definitely not running from that. We welcome it, and I think that I think folks will be pleased with our actions. All right, thank you guys.
Governor Ron DeSantis, wrapping up that news conference, took two questions, both of them about his executive order designating the Council of American Islamic Relations as a terrorist organization. That was something that he announced yesterday. We are standing by for a news conference around noon that we expect in the Tampa area from the Florida chapter of that organization. Responding to this and announcing that they do plan to sue. You heard Governor DeSantis there saying, I welcome that lawsuit, and saying that those executive orders are just the beginning, that he expects some legislation to follow up on that, and that the Attorney General is ready, willing, and able to look into this. So we will have more on that topic, again, coming up around noon when we expect that news conference to begin. We will bring that to you live right here on Fox 35 News Plus. Right now, we're going to take a quick break on Fox Local and YouTube, but we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to give you a live look at the two different trials we are monitoring this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus. On the left, you're looking at a Hillsborough County courtroom where Mackenzie Lyons is on trial right now, a retrial for a man who is accused of killing a pregnant woman and her husband during a home invasion back in 2018. Mackenzie Lyons does face the death penalty for those charges, including first-degree murder, killing an unborn child, and armed robbery. He's accused of ambushing and shooting a woman and his pregnant wife. The prosecution claims that the man who was shot in this was a known drug dealer and believe that was the motive behind the robbery. We should note that Lyons' alleged accomplice in this case took a plea deal and is expected to testify against him in exchange for spending 35 years in prison. So that is one of the trials that we are watching. Again, that one out of Hillsborough County on the left. On the right, you are getting a live look right now inside a courtroom in Flagler County where James Melody is on trial this week. He is a former paramedic who is accused of sexually assaulting a patient while that patient was inside an ambulance back in 2021. Police say they actually uncovered videos of this while investigating him for a separate case. Melody has pleaded not guilty, though, to a sexual battery. Again, this is a trial on those alleged sex crime charges stemming from that alleged assault. Jury selection was yesterday. We heard opening statements yesterday, so we're now hearing from some witnesses who have been called to the stand to testify. So we are monitoring that, and we'll keep an eye on that, get you updated on that throughout the day here on Fox 35 News Plus. I want to give you a check of a couple of your Fox 35 News Plus headlines right now as well, and that is the FAA investigating two separate plane crashes in Central Florida. One of them crashed yesterday on I-95 in Brevard County, tore the roof off a Toyota Camry that had been going along the interstate there. The other crashed in Volusia County. We had that as breaking news on Fox 35 News Plus yesterday afternoon. Happened around 2 o'clock p.m. across from DeLand High School. Fox 35's Marley Capper has more on what we know about those two plane crashes.
First, talk about the one off of I-95. It had an emergency landing around 6 p.m. and hit the roof of a Toyota Camry, ripping it apart. Take a look. You can also see the rear passenger door and trunk are also torn apart. The Federal Aviation Administration says the two 27-year-old men on board the plane made it out okay after reporting engine issues. Florida Highway Patrol says the 57-year-old woman driving the car was taken to the hospital with minor injuries.
They're very lucky that they made it. I just thought it was a huge wreck, like a semi hitting something. That's what it sounded like.
Now let's look at the crash that happened at 2 p.m. across from DeLand High School. Video shows the dirt skid marks on the road, and the plane, it's on its side. A door hanging off, a wheel on the ground, and feet behind the plane. People nearby who saw the wreckage couldn't believe their eyes.
It's scary. I mean, just everyone be safe and, praying for whoever was in the plane.
According to the documents from the FAA, it's a 1982 fixed-wing style engine plane, and the plane is registered to a woman from New Smyrna Beach. The sheriff's office tells us the two people on board were taken to the hospital. One person was taken via air, and the other person went in an ambulance. Both were conscious when they were being transported. Now, we don't know why that plane crashed, but we do know the FAA is investigating both crashes.
And we are following up on that today, trying to learn some new information. Meanwhile, one thing in Tallahassee we were monitoring yesterday afternoon, and that is the state now looking into spending and a number of other operational issues in the city of Daytona Beach. This is after a state senator asked the state committee to approve the auditor general from the state looking into the operations at Daytona Beach. Obviously been a lot of controversy over the past few weeks regarding some questions over spending and documentation of that spending in Daytona Beach, and Fox 35's Amanda Ruiz has more on that.
State Senator Tom Wright is the one who is pushing the state to take a closer look at how the city of Daytona Beach is spending its funds. This comes after weeks of the city doing its own audits on itself. Monday, Senator Tom Wright sat before the State Joint Legislative Auditing Committee in Tallahassee to discuss a series of troubling financial management practices that have allegedly been happening in the city of Daytona Beach. He called for a state-led audit to figure out the truth about what's going on. The committee approving the motion unanimously. This comes after a report from last month showed excessive and underdocumented employee travel spending, funds spent on valet, excessive meals, and business class plane tickets. The city auditor also alleged a supervisor allowed another employee that they were romantically involved with to use city credit cards for personal use, including lavish trips. The committee didn't agree with all the findings in the report. Still, the city pledged to make changes to their travel spending policies, which haven't been updated since 1999.
My particular personal feelings is that we're going to find more. And I'm sorry to say that, because I think the mayor is a good man, and I believe that he's being told things that aren't true. This is not about assigning blame. This is about restoring public confidence and ensuring accountability.
And state leaders say this is long overdue. The last time the city of Daytona Beach had an audit done was 34 years ago.
And new into our newsroom this morning, a statement, a response from the Daytona Beach mayor, Derek Henry, saying, quote, "As mayor, I welcome the operational audit approved by Florida's Auditor General. We are confident in our financial management and view this as an opportunity to demonstrate transparency and accountability. We will provide full cooperation and access to resources, ensuring a comprehensive review. This process allows us to address any misconceptions, rebuild trust with our residents and business partners, and continue driving Daytona Beach forward. We're committed to addressing any findings and maintaining the city's positive trajectory." Let me give you a live look right now at our at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera on this Tuesday morning. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now, and Brooks, a bit of a chilly start this morning.
Right, a lot of folks were kind of taken aback, maybe not totally prepared for that wind this morning, but yeah, we get down to the 40s and 50s, and the wind made it feel colder. There's this wind chill factor, so you combine temperature and wind, but the one thing it doesn't factor in is the humidity of Florida. And because it's still a little bit humid after all that rain, that actually adds to the feel. Just like wind will blow heat away from your body, making you feel colder, giving you that wind chill factor, humidity will wick it away with a latent heat transfer. So the more humid it is, the colder it will feel. So that's one thing the wind chill factor has a shortcoming of. It's hard to describe Florida weather accurately. Yeah, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. So it makes us not feel so bad when we reach for the jackets on mornings like this. It's not because you're soft, it's because of science. Okay, good, interesting stuff. The forecast, yeah. We've got a windy morning out there, windy afternoon ahead. We've got winds about 15, 25 miles an hour. 62 degrees, warming up though, Lake Fairview. We're going to top out today in the upper 60s to around 70. The wind continuing to be a factor out of the northeast, about 15 to 20 miles an hour. And temperatures at this midday hour are about 5 to 10 degrees cooler than they were yesterday at this time. At the peak of this morning, the temperatures were like 20 degrees colder than they were the morning before. We got clouds across South Florida that I'm expecting to work northward and develop in Central Florida. So while we've had this sunny morning, I think by mid-afternoon we'll have a lot of areas in the overcast, especially from Orlando points south. And that's because of this. This is kind of a complicated looking map. You can see the lines are going in different directions. The blue is the surface wind, and that's coming out of the north-northeast. The red are winds aloft at like 5,000 feet coming out of the southwest. So those two wind directions are coming in opposite directions. They collide essentially and force lift. So that's why clouds are going to develop. We've got some atmospheric moisture in place in the lower levels between about 2,500 feet and 6,000 feet, and that's where I expect that stratosdeck to develop. It's going to be the kind of cloud cover where if you fly out of the airport in a jet, you'll quickly pop up over the clouds, but you'll look down and Florida will be hidden by overcast skies. And there could even be some showers from underneath those clouds across especially Brevard County, but maybe a few sprinkles into Osceola County late this afternoon. Otherwise, over the next 12 hours, we'll warm from the mid-60s to the upper 60s by 3, and then cool back down into the upper 50s by dinner time. So it's going to be another cool night ahead, but a slow warming trend as we head toward the weekend. 60 is all we'll muster today in Gainesville, though. About 69 degrees in St. Cloud, closer to 70 along the immediate coast thanks to the adjacent warmer waters. Tomorrow morning, we'll wake up to some chilly weather, 39 in Gainesville for our Wednesday morning, 53 in Orlando, and 61 degrees in Melbourne. All right, let's talk about what is going on in the big picture. When's the warm-up, right? The inevitable warm-up. Well, we've got it on the horizon, but first off, we got to get through a week and a half of below average temperatures. You see up in Denver and Dallas, all those yellows and reds on the left-hand part of the screen. That represents the leading edge of the warm weather that'll ultimately come our way for the week of Christmas. And we're going to go from highs around or just above 70, which is considered slightly below normal, to temperatures well above normal for Christmas week, and we could be seeing a routine occurrence of 80s. So it may be one of those Christmases that feel a little bit more like Easter. No major weather systems ahead, but there are some indications around maybe the 15th, 16th we catch a rainy system for a day or so. But it'll just be kind of breezy and cool today, breezy again Thursday, and then another breezy day next Monday. Otherwise, a kind of a nice change, a seasonal change that a lot of Floridians have been looking forward to after 9 months of really hot weather.
Yeah, I think it's a nice little break, and then it'll still warm up in time for spending Christmas by the pool.
Perfect. Well said. That's right.
Best of both worlds.
You got it.
Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
You bet. My pleasure as always. Thanks, Garrett.
And as we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, let me give you a live look right now at downtown Orlando and Lake Eola, and beautiful, much clearer skies out there today than we were seeing at the same time yesterday. Keep it right here. We've got more to come. Live look right now at downtown Orlando. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to take you live now to Capitol Hill, where we are seeing a hearing from the Senate Judiciary Committee that includes Ashley Moody, one of Florida's senators. She sits on this committee. But we're hearing this is all about protecting children online against the evolving offender. And so they're looking at ways that the threats against children online and on social media and on so many different platforms out there is constantly changing, and looking at ways to address that, looking at ways to protect children. This is Tamia Woods, who's the co-founder of the Do It for James Foundation out of Ohio. A couple of other witnesses testifying today, one of them a former assistant U.S. attorney, the other one the executive director of the Exploited Children Division with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This is certainly a big topic. We know that there are just so many times we hear of people facing charges stemming from actions taken online against children. And we have, hear about the steps that are taken at the state level, at the federal level, to try to address that and try to protect children. So let's go ahead and listen in live here as this hearing continues right now on Capitol Hill.
Have take it down as an option. It takes a weight off of them. And they are able to address all the other issues that come after it. But once we take that photo away, then we can battle everything else. And I think that helps them with that.
Thank you. Thank you. And as you know, Ms. Coffrin, the Take It Down Act gives victims not only the rights with regard to the people doing this, but the rights to demand that the social media platforms take these images down. I wrote a piece today in the New York Times about AI and just how important it is to allow the states to keep doing their work while we're waiting on the leadership to bring up these bills for a vote. I just believe that if you are not going to do anything federally, you better do something in the states, but also that you've got to hold these platforms liable. And could you talk about that?
Sure. The biggest threat that children face is not necessarily a criminal justice proceeding or the fear of what's going to be happening next. They just want their images down. So the threats that these bad actors are using against them is actually a recirculation of the same diatribes that we've been telling children for years in a prevention type method. Don't do this action, or once it's out there, it's always out there and you'll never get it back. That has to change. The Take It Down Act changes that significantly by requiring that company to within 48 hours to be able to be removing that. Children need to know that they have that right for that content to come down so that the threat to recirculate, there's power taken away from that and the child gets that power back. So that act is really revolutionary because historically what we've seen is companies taking a week, 2 week, sometimes non-removals at all. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children publishes our data about the companies that we send notices for, those companies that take it down, how long it takes them to take it down, and which companies choose not to. All that information is public, and we're trying to make sure that people can find that and are aware.
That'll be very, very helpful for all of us. Ms. Mueller, a short question here, little related but different topic. Senator Blackburn and I introduced the National Human Trafficking Database Act to establish a national human trafficking database at the DOJ's Office for Victims of Crime to incentivize states to report data, a little bit along the lines of what we're hearing from Ms. Coffrin on the Take It Down bill. Can you talk about the data sharing in this area and how it can empower law enforcement to protect victims of human trafficking?
Yes, thank you, Senator. Human traffickers move victims across state lines all the time. That's how they make money. That is how they get more victims by crossing state lines. So having nationwide data for law enforcement is invaluable to be able to talk to their colleagues in different states to get information on different traffickers, on victims. We try to rescue victims all the time. So without that data, you can't do that.
Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I really appreciate it. Ms. Woods, Ms. Smoller, Ms. Coffrin, I cannot thank you enough for being here today. My name is Ashley Moody. I became the first mom of a school kid ever on Florida's cabinet when I became the Attorney General. My kid was still in school, and I debated how that was going to be a challenge. But ultimately, that challenge of balancing that and making that work became my biggest driver. And I am listening to you guys talk this morning, and I'm so grateful we have people like you willing to speak up and stay focused on this and not let up. Because I am telling you, the focus of large corporations on profit, that never lets up. And that is a fight all in of itself. In fact, if you are a representative of a large tech platform or any of the associations or represent them in government affairs, could you please stand up? I just would like the chairman to note, not one person is here for this testimony to listen to a mother who lost her only child. Thank you for showing up. Let me tell you when they do show up. In 2004, because Congress has done nothing. Oh, and you know what we did get passed this last year? It was because of a mom showed up in Congress and said, you have to get this done. Melania Trump said, show up. We have to pass this. The Take It Down Act. We've got to pass it. And it did because a mom showed up and didn't let up. You've heard from multiple people say Congress is doing nothing, that Congress is under the thumb of big tech because of financial influence. Lindsey Graham said, how is this happening? Maybe we do something next year. In fact, he said, nothing really happens. So because Congress hasn't done anything, what have we had to do in the states? When I was the only mom on the Florida cabinet of a school-aged kid, we passed legislation in Florida. We were one of the very first states to protect kids online in 2024. We protected young kids. We got it done. We were one of the first states. Now other states have had to follow suit because what happens in Congress? Nothing really happens. And we did it. But you know where these big tech companies show up? They're lawyers, they're where they do show up in court to fight us when we get something done. So when we passed it in Florida and I showed up in court when they sued us to overturn the law and spent all of that money to sue when the state actually did something to stand up for their kids, we fought it. And I am proud to tell you, they showed up there to fight us. I am proud to tell you, fighting hard, staying focused, staying persistent, showing up, we just got to win. We just got to win in court. In fact, I am proud to tell you that that piece of legislation got upheld in the 11th Circuit, and I think we're going to win it. It just shows to show you you can do something. We looked at all those other states that had tried something that got blocked, and we took that into account when we passed our law. And now we're winning in court, and we're winning against those companies. And when I'm telling you what, I'm watching you, you've blended everything from being a mother. I was a former federal prosecutor. I have worked on human trafficking constantly, led the human trafficking group within our statewide Human Trafficking Council. I won't give up. And we're making progress in this fight. And now I just got appointed United States Senator, and we're going to do that here. I'd like them to show up so I can fight them in person right here in this hearing. Because that's what's got to happen. If we're going to move anything, as Lindsey Graham says, if we're going to have anything really happen, we've got to have people speaking out. Thank you, ma'am, for making it known that this is happening under our noses. Stranger danger doesn't work anymore. Don't get into the van doesn't work anymore. It's happening in our kids' bedrooms, and we need to be vocal about it and say, if they're not your friend in real life, they can't be your friend online. Let's get that message out, and I appreciate you speaking out, and I hope other kids will not be embarrassed enough to share this with their friends, and we're going to work on that. Please come to my office so we can come up with a plan. I will say, as a former federal prosecutor, having a specific crime, outlawing and providing penalties for sextortion, as a prosecutor, I know that would have been helpful. I appreciate you, Ms. Smolar. Have you seen a specific piece of legislation yet presented on outlining the elements of sextortion federally and what criminal penalty would be tied to that?
Other than proposed legislation,
have you seen it filed? A piece of proposed legislation?
Not yet.
So we need to get that done. As a former federal prosecutor, one to another, I will pledge to you we will make that happen. We also need to see that in the states. Do you think that would be helpful in the states?
Absolutely.
To see a specific sextortion crime defined with penalties attached in the states.
We work with states all the time on these cases.
As a former Florida Attorney General, I created a cyber unit that worked specifically on these crimes. That was incredibly helpful. They could go out immediately, recover evidence, begin work on investigations. Do you think having those specialty units in each state working with federal partners would be helpful?
Absolutely. We do that all the time on these type of cases. In addition, a lot of the defendants, the perpetrators of some of these crimes are juveniles. And the states can prosecute juveniles and place juveniles. The federal government, it's much harder to do that.
Well, I have run out of time, but let me just again say thank you for not losing focus. Thank you for not losing passion on behalf of the kids of this nation. They are going to be the ones that carry this message to their peers, and we need to continue pushing this message until it seeps into their vocabulary, and this is commonplace for them to talk through these things. Thank you so much.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you. It was Florida's Senator Ashley Moody speaking there with some fiery words, and you can see some frustration with those big tech companies. Their lack of activity, their not showing up for hearings like this, also talking about what some of the things she wants to see done in response to some of these specific sextortion laws. at the federal and at the state levels. So this is something that you can tell she is passionate about as Florida's former Attorney General, now a senator on Capitol Hill. That hearing is continuing. We're going to step aside, take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We are also watching these wild images coming out of Philadelphia, this row home fire that firefighters are battling. You can see so much smoke. At one point, you could see flames shooting out of some of the vents at the top of the ceiling there, or the roof. So a large fire that is blazing in Philadelphia. We're keeping an eye on that as well. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. 11:51 on this Tuesday morning. Let me give you a live look at the CAIR, Florida, and their headquarters in Tampa right now, where we are getting ready for a news conference coming up around noon from officials with that organization. This is, again, the Florida chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, and they are announcing a legal challenge against Governor Ron DeSantis. This comes after his executive order yesterday that designated CAIR as a, quote, foreign terrorist organization. Give me 1 second here, because I'm going to try to pull up the governor's tweet that shows that executive order, and you can see it for yourself. So just give me 1 second. But that news conference is expected around noon. You can see media getting ready for that and setting up for that news conference. Let me show you now as I pull up the executive order that you can find on social media. The governor putting this out on X yesterday, saying that they're designating not only CAIR, but also the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations. And in his tweet saying, Florida agencies hereby directed to undertake all lawful measures to prevent unlawful activities by these organizations, including denying privileges or resources to anyone providing material support. And if we look through this executive order here, it cites an executive order from President Trump at the beginning here, as it talks about designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. It talks about a little bit of their history. Again, this is a multiple-page executive order, and talking about that. Then at the bottom of page 2, you hear you see rather, the discussion about the Council on American Islamic Relations, saying they were founded by persons connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, and was created, in the words of persons affiliated with CAIR, as, quote, an official U.S. cover representing the Islamic community to conceal ties to Islamic extremist groups. That's the wording in the executive order signed by Governor Ron DeSantis yesterday. And so this is where it gets into a little bit of what they want to see happen, as it says this takes immediate effect. Unless prohibited by federal or state law, all other executive and cabinet agencies shall further undertake all lawful action to prevent any terrorist organization or any person known to have provided material support or resources to such organization from receiving any contract, employment, funds, or other benefit or privilege from such executive or cabinet agency or any entity. You see the governor's signature on that. You also see the signature of the Secretary of State. Now, CAIR, the Florida chapter of that agency, saying that the words in that executive order are not only unconstitutional, but they are also defamatory. And so CAIR planning to announce their legal steps that they plan on taking. We heard the governor just a little bit ago saying that he welcomes that lawsuit, saying that that would allow them discovery, the chance to look into some more of their finances and some other things with that organization if they do, in fact, file a lawsuit. So we will be standing by for that news conference and do plan to bring that to you live as soon as it begins. I want to take you live right now to Hillsborough County, where this trial of a man charged with murder and facing the death penalty is underway. Mackenzie Lyons facing the death penalty for a 2018 accused of killing 2 people during a 2018 home invasion, also accused of killing an unborn child because one of the people who was killed was pregnant. Now, the defense says that law enforcement may have gotten some of the video that they say that shows the suspects in this case. They may have gotten it through non-official means. They also argue that the testimony of the accomplice, the alleged accomplice of the suspect in this case, is unreliable. So let's go ahead and listen in for a minute here and see what's happening in this trial. Again, this is I believe the second day of this. We had opening statements yesterday, and let's go ahead and listen in live here from this trial in Hillsborough County.
That was above the female victims. Did you locate, based upon that location of that bullet hole, were you able to cut into the wall and locate any projectiles?
Yes, ma'am.
And so that would be at at RD6.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm showing you State's Exhibit number 25. Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
Is that the projectile that you were able to locate out of bullet hole RD6?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you collected it?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, the state seeks to move into evidence what was pre-marked as State's Exhibit 25.
No objection. No objection.
All right, if you can please show that to the jury. All right, thank you. Okay, showing you States 23Y. All right, what are we seeing here?
So this would be an end table. We're actually in the main living room area. The opening that you can see on the right-hand side of the photograph, that would be the entrance into the master bedroom.
Okay, and so if that is looking at, I'm going to show the crime scene diagram again, looking here. Oops, sorry, it's not liking to move on me. There we go. Okay, so looking here, if this is the family room wall, is this the wall that you are talking about, that you are looking at in states 23Y?
So where you see where marker number 11 is?
Yes.
The actual circle where it's 11, that would be the approximate location that little stand, that little table we were looking at in that photo would be.
Okay, so that's where it was around there. So it's along, so when we're talking along this wall.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that wall, would that wall be and for where this table is and where we're going to be talking about this, is this closest to the head of the female victim?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Showing you 23Z. Oops, sorry, let me zoom out a bit. 23Z. What are we seeing here?
So now we have the table. We've added our additional rulers on there for just to show the placement of the holes on the rulers. And you can see where we've done that on the wall behind that also.
It's 23AA, I should say.
So now we can still see it. Now you can see the hole on the top of the table, the hole on the side of the table, and the hole in the wall.
BB.
So this is the hole on the top of the table, so this is RD9.
All right, it looks like this news conference in Tampa getting underway as officials with CAIR Florida plan to announce a legal challenge against the governor over his executive order designating them as a foreign terrorist organization. Let's go ahead and listen in.
I want to thank our ally community, our friends, for being here, and thank the media also for covering this. This press conference is a response to Governor Ron DeSantis' executive order attacking and defaming CAIR Florida. CAIR Florida is an American civil rights organization that is registered, federally recognized 501c3 that has been operating in the state for over a quarter of a century. CAIR Florida is an organization that defends victims of discrimination and works to uphold the Constitution. We've met with elected officials for decades. We have met with elected officials at local, state, and federal levels. We represent the voice of the American Muslim community, and we defend not only the Muslim community, but the community at large when there are instances of discrimination. We have protected the rights of Floridians from the Muslim community and even outside of the Muslim community. We've helped secure their religious rights. We've defended against First Amendment free speech violations. We've supported prisoners' rights. We've protected free speech for students. And we've stood up against discrimination. We've contributed to local food pantries and back-to-school drives to advance equity amongst all of us. We've stood with community organizations to support their causes just as they've stood with us to support ours. And we've engaged in interfaith work to get to know our Christian brothers and sisters and our Jewish brothers and sisters from different faiths, because we know full well that when we meet together, when we open our hearts and minds, when we have these conversations, when we find common grounds, we have a better and more beautiful America. We have a safer America. Our community allies include groups from faith-based organizations, Christian and Jewish communities, civil rights groups, and others who we work with to promote our shared values and causes. If you are not sure about the work that we do, we invite you to follow us on our social media. Our work is public, and we are very proud to defend our Constitution. We are very proud to defend the founding principles of our Constitution, to defend free speech. We are proud to defend democracy, and we are proud to be America first. But that's where the problem is. That's when these issues that we advocate for become problematic for some of our politicians, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. When these issues become problematic for some of our politicians, we get attacked. I'll explain this very clearly to the American people and to the people of Florida. I will tell you exactly what this smear campaign is about. From the moment that Ron DeSantis took office as the governor of Florida, he has prioritized serving the Israeli government over serving the people of Florida. He hosted his first official cabinet meeting in Israel, not in Florida, not in our capital, not in Tallahassee, but in Israel. Ron DeSantis has sent millions of Floridians' taxpayer money to Israeli government bonds, while Floridians are suffering from a lack of health care, while Floridians are suffering from food scarcity, from economic crises, from high rent. Our economy is suffering, but our tax money is going to fuel a better quality of life for Israelis. And billions of US taxpayer money is funding the genocide in Gaza. Let me be clear. CAIR Florida highlights these issues not only as opposition to the genocide, but because sending so much money to a foreign nation while our people are struggling to make ends meet directly hurts Americans. It directly hurts Floridians. So when Floridians are realizing this, because CAIR Florida is leading the campaign to bring awareness to these issues, because CAIR Florida is working with coalition partners, because CAIR Florida is making sure that we don't just ignore these facts, that we raise them and elevate them and make sure people are opening their eyes and understanding the reality of what our Israel first politicians are doing. Yes, we have become the victim of another smear campaign. This is not the first time that this has happened. This is just another chapter of the same playbook that we have seen being used against our African American brothers and sisters during the civil rights era. We have seen this playbook being used against minority groups, the Irish, the Italian Americans, even the Jewish Americans in the past, Native Americans. It is a chapter of the same playbook used over and over again. Because when groups become powerful enough to stand up against injustice, and when the masses of the people start to sense this injustice and stand up and speak out against it, the politicians have nothing left to do but to attack based on false, baseless conspiracy theories, and that's exactly what's happening right now with CAIR Florida. In response, we will not back down. CAIR Florida will file a lawsuit against Governor Ron DeSantis in response to his defamatory and unconstitutional order baselessly smearing CAIR Florida. To our governor, your designation has no basis in law or fact. You do not have the constitutional authority to unilaterally declare any American or an American institution a foreign terrorist group, nor is there any basis to level the smear against our organization. CAIR is our nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. It is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have 25 affiliated chapters nationwide and over 500 board and staff members across the country. Our mission is to enhance the public's understanding of Islam, protect civil rights, promote justice, and empower American Muslims. Our mission is also to empower and educate and enlighten the masses about where their tax money is going, who is funding a genocide, and what we should be doing with our taxpayer money. And if that is going to agitate or cause discomfort to any of our Israel First politicians, then get ready to be uncomfortable, because we will not be silenced. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call our Policy Director, Megan Ammer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Eimer, Policy Director for CAIR Florida. That's Megan, M-E-G-A-N, last name Eimer, which is A-M-E-R. And I will say, as a Christian, I am completely appalled by Governor DeSantis' current order. Thank you for the support in the room. Because this organization has been around for so many years, protecting the rights of all. Look at the mission statement on the CAIR Florida website. What does it say? To defend civil liberties and equal justice for all. Although we support the Muslim community, if anybody comes to our door needing assistance when it comes to knowing their rights, when it comes to immigration, we don't ask them, what is your religion? What is your basis? What do you think about the genocide in Israel? No, we open our door and we welcome you with open arms, no matter what your background is, because we are a civil rights organization and that's what we do. We promote the civil rights for everybody here in Florida. As policy director, I keep watch of all the different bills that are going on in Tallahassee. Yes, I focus on the bills that are going to affect the Muslim community, but I also focus on any bill that's going to affect the civil rights of any person here in Florida. And then we work with our community, and our community fights against that. So unfortunately, Governor Ron DeSantis, the Christians, there's many Jewish people, there's many other faith-based organizations that work with CAIR. We build coalitions. We recently built a coalition of over 100 faith-based different civil rights organizations to free a Florida teen who was imprisoned abroad. And we got over 40 faith-based and different civil rights groups joining together here in Florida to call for his release as well. So we will continue to advocate for the civil rights of all Floridians, just not Muslims. Atheists, Jews, Christians, whoever you are. If you need help when it comes to immigration, if you need help with knowing your rights when it comes to ICE, if you need help knowing your rights when you can protest and as far as for free speech, that's what CAIR Florida is here for. We are here to help you. So this is an appalling attack to try to take attention away from the current genocide going on in Gaza. It's to create a scapegoat. It's to create fear-mongering. As politicians and as leaders of the state, it is our job to bring the communities together, to bring interfaith communities together, and to protect the rights of the people in your state. So Governor DeSantis, you need to take a look back at your job description and determine it is what you're supposed to be doing here for Florida and making the state of Florida better and not sowing division and hatred within our communities.
Indeed. Thank you. Next, I'd like to call Reverend Andy Oliver.
Simply put, this proclamation against CAIR is Governor DeSantis' latest attempt to try to be like Donald Trump, targeting a minority community to score political points. But I want to speak as a Christian to other Christians. We're approaching the season of Christmas, and the real Christmas story was not soft. It's about a frightened ruler named Herod who labeled an entire community dangerous out of fear for a baby and used fear to justify violence. He forced the Holy Family to flee as refugees. And history repeats that same pattern. As we heard earlier, Dr. King called a terrorist, Nelson Mandela called a terrorist. Whenever people fight for dignity, someone in power tries to criminalize them. So when the governor calls CAIR a respected Muslim civil rights organization a terrorist group, Christians should recognize exactly what is happening. It's fear-mongering. It isn't truth. And I have to say, myself as a Christian, I have to ask myself, how can I proclaim to follow Jesus, a man executed by the state like those labeled threats, and stay silent while our Muslim neighbors are smeared? I can't. My faith won't let me. Christians do not stand with Herod. We stand with the Holy Family. We stand with those who are targeted. And today, that means standing with CAIR. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Randy Oliver with the Allendale United Methodist Church. Next, I'd like to call Ahmed Sharif with the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee in Tampa.
I just have a brief statement on behalf of the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee here in Tampa. We strongly denounce the executive order issued by Governor DeSantis, falsely labeling CAIR Florida and CAIR as a terrorist organization. This declaration is baseless, dangerous, and fundamentally un-American. It tramples on core constitutional freedoms, free speech, religious liberty, equality, and justice for all. And it weaponizes state power against an established civil rights organization that has served Florida for many decades. ADC Tampa has worked closely with CAIR Florida to advance the civil liberties and human rights for every American. Just recently, we worked to advocate for the release of an American teenager held in an Israeli prison. We fought Islamophobia and discrimination, defended religious freedom on college campuses, and hosted elected officials at community events. All this to uplift the civil engagement of Arab and Muslim American voters across our state. This order is not about security. It is a cheap political maneuver intended to appease the interests of the Israeli government, distract from Israel's ongoing genocide, and silence advocacy efforts that expose their human rights abuses. Governor DeSantis' actions do not put America first. They undermine the civil liberties of Americans to shield the accountability of a foreign government. This step sets a chilling precedent. If civil rights organizations can be targeted for their advocacy, then every Floridian's freedoms are at risk. We are confident that the American public will reject this blatant assault on our constitutional values. Finally, ADC Tampa calls on Florida communities, civil rights organizations, elected officials at every level, and all individuals committed to democracy to firmly denounce this authoritarian action. Protecting our rights is not optional. It is our responsibility as Americans. We stand in full solidarity with CAIR and CAIR Florida, and we support their legal challenges to this unlawful and dangerous executive order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to call Mira with the National Lawyers Guild in Tampa.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Miranda Margolis. I am an attorney with the Tampa Bay chapter of the National Lawyers Guild, and I'd like to briefly share a statement from NLG National. The National Lawyers Guild condemns Florida's unlawful and discriminatory designation of CAIR as a terrorist organization. This designation is without legal or factual basis and constitutes a dangerous escalation of anti-Muslim political rhetoric weaponized to suppress constitutionally protected advocacy and civil rights work. The governor does not have the legal authority to unilaterally declare any US-based nonprofit a terrorist organization. He is attempting to bypass federal jurisdiction and decades of legal precedent, which reserve such determinations for the US Departments of State and Treasury, notwithstanding the fact that federal designation mechanisms are also frequently weaponized for political repression. To Governor DeSantis, you do not have the authority to unilaterally declare any Americans or American institutions terrorist groups, nor is there any basis to level this smear against CAIR. This action is a political stunt, not a lawful designation. It has no application under federal material support statutes and carries no enforceable criminal or counterterrorism consequences. Its limited impact is confined to obscure real property prohibitions under state law, an attempt to restrict CAIR and Muslim communities from acquiring or retaining land, echoing historical repression tactics used against marginalized groups. More troublingly, this designation perpetuates blatant anti-Muslim discrimination, aligning the state with known anti-Muslim extremist rhetoric and fear-mongering. CAIR is an American civil rights organization with a 30-year track record of defending civil liberties, opposing all forms of bigotry, including Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, anti-Palestinian hate, anti-Semitism, and unjust violence. By falsely conflating constitutionally protected advocacy with terrorism, the Florida governor is engaging in a modern form of McCarthyism. that threatens the work of all communities engaged in anti-war, anti-imperialist, and human rights defense. The National Lawyers Guild stands alongside CAIR and all Muslim-led institutions targeted by state repression. We call on legal advocates, civil rights organizations, bar associations, and elected officials to publicly reject this designation, continue supporting CAIR, and prepare for necessary constitutional litigation. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. At this point, we'll open the floor to questions you may have.
What is your response to the governor's statements today that he welcomes this lawsuit because it gives him the chance and gives his legal team the chance to go through various aspects of discovery and learn more about the inner workings of your organization?
We welcome it as well, and we will see him in the courtroom.
What's your response to, not response, but what's your view of people who might say, you know, I don't have time to follow the ins and outs of civil rights law. I am busy making ends meet. I have lots to do in my life. For groups out there, for people out there who aren't necessarily Muslim or members of a minority community, what is your comment to them about the dangers of going down a slippery slope when one group gets attacked from a civil rights perspective?
If you study the trajectory of our history, you'll see that these types of attacks were made against multiple minority groups in the past. So you have the Jewish community, the Italian community, the Irish community, the Japanese, the Vietnamese, the African Americans, and continuously you see these attacks against these minority groups whenever there is some type of discomfort that our politicians face. And so what I would say is this is an attack on our Constitution. An attack on CAIR is an attack on our liberties, it's an attack on our Constitution. And if you care about upholding the Constitution, if you are truly America first, then you have to prioritize fighting against these types of attacks and standing with minority groups, whether they're the Muslim community or any other minority group, because today the Muslims, tomorrow somebody else.
In the governor's remarks, he also mentioned that he expected the federal government to take a similar path against the same organizations. He also said that he expects that the legislature this year in Florida will take action to codify the things that he finds that he believes that CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood qualify as terrorist organizations. Are you concerned that in today's political climate that may happen federally and in the state legislature to propose ordinances or regulations that would limit what CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood can do and be a part of here?
We will respond to whatever comes our way, piece by piece, day by day, and in the meantime, we will continue to uphold our vision and mission, which is to protect Americans and to enhance people's understanding of Islam and Muslims and to defend civil rights.
But do you think the way that things have been going nationally and locally, that may happen?
Things have taken a different trajectory than what we're used to. We are now seeing accusations based purely on conspiracy theories, and so we will do our best to stand up for ourselves, and we will certainly meet the legislators where they're at. Whatever comes our way, we will respond accordingly based on facts and based on what our court systems allow us to do. In the courts, we can't use these conspiracy theories and these lies. That's where we use facts and the law, and so that's where we will have our justice.
Is there any concern with the public response to, you know, you guys being called as a terrorist group? You know, we see people commenting all over online saying they either agree with them or they're backing you up. I mean, do you believe that this may have lit a flame further to insinuate more fear-mongering and maybe other people kind of responding in the community?
One of the real concerns that we face as a Muslim community after these types of attacks is an increase of Islamophobia. Our community does fall victim to more attacks, whether verbal, sometimes physical, God forbid, sometimes even worse. So what I would invite the public to do is to research. We cannot be a people. We cannot be Americans who just absorb information as it comes to us. We know about misinformation. We know about disinformation. We know these things have happened for decades, centuries, and even millennia. These are tactics. These are part of a playbook. And we have to be able to independently research and understand the situation. So yes, we are concerned for the Muslim community. We are in communications with our law enforcement to make sure that we have increase protections for the Muslim community, especially during these times. Unfortunately, we have seen in the past an uptick of attacks against Muslims when this type of fear-mongering and rhetoric emerges. But we will continue to rely on the support from not only the Muslim community, but our ally community to stand with us.
Now, again, on the other hand, is there any concern kind of with what he mentioned with DeSantis saying he welcomes looking into the discovery, but also into financial records? Is there any concern on that front?
No concern.
When it comes to this organization's future, are you concerned that if the legal case does not go the way you want it to, that it could threaten the existence of this group altogether?
If we come to that point, then we'll have our legal team address it in the best way they know how, and they'll be able to navigate that path. I'm not an attorney, but if it comes to that point, our legal team will have a better answer.
How large of a legal team are you going to have to handle this very complicated and very high-profile legal situation?
CAIR Florida will be working with CAIR National's legal team, and if they may choose to outsource also and get counsel from outside of our organization.
Will there be attorneys who have to work on this who are not going to be able to devote time to working on civil rights cases?
Our attorneys will be purely focused on working to defend the Florida Muslim community. They will also support National in this litigation, but how they will distribute their time, I'm not exactly sure. We'll have an attorney. Once we file the lawsuit, we'll have our attorneys better able to answer those questions. Yes.
Are you afraid of a Department of Justice that continuously proves they're totally incompetent?
Afraid? We are not afraid when we stand on the right side of justice.
Is a good word.
Right. We are troubled by the government's attempts to constantly derail us from the good work that we're doing, and we wish that we could see eye to eye, work together, and really advance the cause of the American people together instead of working constantly against each other.
Did you have any heads up that this was coming? Did you have a relationship with the DeSantis, and his team before this, or was this just out of the blue?
We have not had a very, we have very good relationships with many elected officials, local and state and federal. Governor DeSantis's policies have been quite contrary to the principles of justice and equity that we uphold at CAIR Florida. So we have taken a stance against some of his policies, and I'm sure he's very well aware of those. But it's not just CAIR, it's CAIR and millions of Floridians who have taken a stance against some of those policies that we view as unjust and unconstitutional.
What would you say to all Floridians who know, respect, and admire our Muslim neighbors, how we can support our neighbors in this time?
Thank you for that question. We do call on our our neighbors, our community members, our ally groups, especially our faith-based groups, to take a public position and support CAIR Florida. We welcome them to meet with us, to talk to us, to ask us questions. Some of these allegations are rightfully and understandably concerning and can cause trepidation or a lack of comfort, but what we want to say is there's no reason to be uncomfortable. We always have our arms open and our doors open to talk, to communicate, to answer questions, but as Reverend Oliver mentioned, there is a Judeo-Christian calling to stand up for truth and justice. And the first element, the first step to that is knowing what the truth is and not just accepting blindly the disinformation that's coming our way. So please reach out to us. We're happy to have these conversations. CAIR Florida has been involved and engaged in interfaith work for decades. I personally have been involved in interfaith work for decades. So we look forward to continuing those conversations, answering any questions that you may have. And please take those messages to your congregation so that we have a safer, more beautiful America.
Do you believe this may be a form of retaliation for CAIR's effective role in getting the release of American citizen Mohammed Ibrahim from Israeli custody?
The release of Mohammed Ibrahim from Israeli custody is one of the highlights of our year and most proud moments this year. Is it a form of retaliation? It could be a form of retaliation against our highlighting the Israel first stance and posture that Governor Ron DeSantis has consistently taken over not just the last year, but since he's assumed office. And when Israel recently ran a poll or a survey to test what people are saying and how they're feeling about the Israeli government, the results were very, very largely negative, and this is by the masses of the American people. And so when you find that the masses of the American people are looking adversely and negatively upon a government, they're left with no option except to target those who are raising awareness and making sure the American people know the truth about our Israel first politicians, the ones who are not putting our Americans first. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. How do we frame, or how do we reconcile with the disconnect that in May of 2025, CAIR was recognized by the legislature during Muslim American Heritage Month as a pillar in the community who is not only adding value but successfully advocating for many communities? How do we reconcile with that disconnect? This was May of 2025, and now this designation. How do we frame that for the community?
Yeah, thank you for that beautiful question. Just for reference, in May 2025, both the Florida House and the Florida Senate recognized May 2025 as Muslim American Heritage Month. It does not make sense for the Florida House and the Florida Senate to recognize the contributions of the Florida American Muslim community on one hand, and then to have the governor make these types of baseless smear campaigns on the other. That in itself should tell the audience that there is a huge disconnect and a very evil intention behind these types of allegations. Thank you for that. We're around for any more questions if you have. Thank you very much for coming.
At the news conference in Tampa, wrapping up after about half an hour, from the officials with CAIR Florida and some other organizations as well, responding to the governor's executive order designating CAIR, the Council on American Islamic Relations, as a, quote, foreign terrorist organization. They say that those claims are not only defamatory, they're unconstitutional. They say there's no basis for them in law or fact. And so they are announcing today plans to sue the governor over this step that was in that executive order yesterday. They said they are the voice of the American Muslim community, or a voice of that, and do a lot of work to protect the civil rights. We also heard them, one of the speakers at that news conference, equate this to modern McCarthyism, equating that to kind of the Red Scare back during parts of the Cold War. And so these new developments, as they say they will sue to challenge this. Governor Ron DeSantis saying earlier today that he welcomes this lawsuit because of the chance that it would allow their legal team to kind of get an in-depth look at their finances and that kind of thing through the discovery process. CAIR was asked to respond to that at this news conference. They say, we welcome it as well, and we will see him in the courtroom. Right now, we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I'm Garrett Weimer, and we appreciate you joining us on a busy day here. We talked earlier about all that's going on in Tallahassee, a full slate of committee meetings going on there today. This has been called AI Week by the Florida House. And so many of the Florida House committees and subcommittees that are meeting this week, including today, are really taking a look at issues and how AI may impact them, or a number of things like that. In fact, I'm going to pull up my my list here, my planner for the day, because I just want to give you a little bit of a rundown of some of what the hearings we have seen today are. It started this morning with a hearing on data centers and those impacts on electric utilities. It also looked at AI use by infrastructure providers. There was a panel on artificial intelligence use in state agencies and looking at options for how to use that in the future, maybe leveraging that to be more efficient. Let's see here. There is one going on right now that we expect them to be getting into the issue of the impact of artificial intelligence on the practice of law. There is a House committee considering a bill right now that would require human review of insurance claim denials. So not necessarily just AI, but saying that any insurance claim that is denied would have to be at least reviewed by a human, not by an algorithm, not by artificial intelligence. There's a panel discussion later this afternoon on artificial intelligence use in emergency management when it comes to things like natural disasters. There was also a discussion earlier in the Florida House Careers and Workforce Subcommittee on AI and the future of work, looking at workforce readiness, looking at opportunities for AI in the workplace, and also looking at some of the challenges. And one of the other things that they looked at in that hearing was some of the safeguards that are in place. I want to play you just a little bit from that hearing earlier today in Tallahassee.
Mayor Rosenwald, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you actually just used a word I was about to use with guardrails. Thank you both for being here, and wonderful to hear your student experience. You sound excellent as a mentor, Charity. So I happen to be a college professor. So can you articulate a little more about these ethical guardrails? And the bigger picture is, I think we are all embracing AI to certain degrees, but with any technology, right, there's limitations. Look at what the legislature did this past year. We limited cell phone use in schools. Why? Because social media is a wonderful technology, and then we saw all the cyberbullying and all of that, so we had to restrict. So to frame all this together with Rep. Kendall's question about we need to, of course, be careful with air traffic controllers and this, and what we've all been saying about, you know, the guardrails in terms of university education, right? Can you say a little bit more about what those guardrails are? Because not all students, of course, but sub-students are not producing critical thinking now. And sometimes I see myself as a police officer policing, not all, of course, but at times some students and papers, and we don't even have great AI detector tools anymore. So if you could just articulate a little bit more on the practical level, like what exactly is USF doing that could be a model for us in terms of these ethical guardrails?
Thank you. And it is a work in progress, I'll be honest about that. What we need to do, and this also goes back to the previous question, is what we are trying to do is working with the professors and telling them that just assume that use of generative AI is the starting point. Students will use that, okay? You create a kind of a learning experience in the classroom, they go out and they will use generative AI. So take that as a given, and then try to build up the reasoning aspect and the questioning, and come up with cases where the generative AI will fail, and have them figure out to think why it failed. And I mean, for example, you know, in many cases, the whole context is not at discretion to the generative AI. I mean, the bottom line of AI is it's a learning-based approach. You know, AI is what? It tries to learn something and it uses it. If you don't provide enough good data points for learning, it will learn. It will probably not learn it carefully, or it will learn something incorrect. So that's where you let students to think that, you know, where it failed. You have to create failure cases in order for students to get them excited to think critically. There are many such examples that we want to create in our curriculum, that we challenge AI and have those challenges solved by the students, because that's where we can enforce the critical thinking part. And as I have said earlier, that the world will not stay stagnant at generative AI. There will be new versions of AI coming in pretty soon, in months or in a few years. We want our students to be ready for that. And just using the copy and paste knowledge of generative AI will not make that cut. And we try to instill this with the students also, that let's work together and give us feedback. This is, as I said, this is just the beginning of the curriculum. Give us feedback and give it continually. We don't have to wait till you graduate, so that we modify our curriculum, we modify our syllabus to ensure that the students are learning and developing thinking that will make them adaptable for any changes in the technology in their career.
Follow-up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one follow-up. So I think that's a great idea you're saying is part of your assignment, sort of writ large, is challenge AI. You're going to get this produced on anything. provide a model that uses engineering, psychology, and ethics to help us understand something for career education or career and workforce. Boom, you have it. But then you might say, okay, this is what AI produced. Now go to the literature and tell us where AI has it right and where it doesn't. Are you saying like that's an example perhaps of an assignment you might give? Because I just wanted to get really into not too into the weeds, but just as an example of like how you actually put in a guardrail. So that sounds like that's an example of an assignment where you have the students challenge AI. Do I understand you correctly?
Yeah, that's one. And let me give you another example, which I'm sure it was big in the news last year. The company in Hong Kong, a financial company, there was a request to transfer $25 million to the CFO, and the CFO followed the protocol, had a Zoom call, all partners were there and everything. It was all decided, the money was transferred during the weekend. And Monday they realized that every visual image in that Zoom call, all voices, everything was AI manufactured. It was a fake transition. It's in the news. If you do Google and CNN, February of 2023 or 2024, it was done. So it is an example that I always use for students that go figure out how we could have avoided this. You go to the Zoom call, you see your colleagues, you hear their voice. Everything was AI manufactured. So that's an example to tell us, how we can challenge our next generation students in order to be careful about.
AI in the classroom, certainly a big topic there as well. So just a lot of different angles when it comes to looking at artificial intelligence. And all of this obviously comes in the backdrop of the state and Governor Ron DeSantis unveiling plans recently for essentially an AI consumers bill of rights in the state of Florida. And President Donald Trump saying, hold up, he doesn't want states passing different regulations and different laws about AI. He said that sometime this week he will sign some sort of executive order that will, we don't know exactly what it will do, but we do know that he wants it to be federal regulations, not states doing their own thing when it comes to artificial intelligence. So where this all goes, we'll just have to wait and see, but we're keeping a close eye on it. We're also keeping a close eye on some more of these hearings that are going on right now. We'll check in on those. Right now, we're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be right back.
the bill.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I do want to give you a live look right now inside the Florida House Insurance and Banking Subcommittee meeting. They are just wrapping up a conversation and debate and now a vote on a previous bill. They are just about to get into. You see Representative Castle walking down from the dais there is getting ready to speak at the podium because she's going to introduce her bill, which is House Bill 527, about the mandatory human review of insurance claim denials. So I believe they are getting ready to go ahead and call this. So let's listen in live in Tallahassee.
By Owen and Daly to be reported favorably. Members, we will now take up HB 505, virtual currency kiosk. Reported favorably. Members, we will now take up HB 527, mandatory human reviews of insurance claim by Vice Chair Cassell. Vice Chair Cassell, you are recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to upstage you, but you have an incredible vice chair that I would also like to recognize. Ranking Member Chambliss and members, HB House Bill 527 addresses a growing challenge in our insurance markets, the increasing use of algorithms and artificial intelligence in the claims handling process. While these tools can improve speed and efficiency, no Floridian should ever have a claim denied based solely on an automated output. HB 527 establishes a clear and reasonable safeguard. It requires that any decision to deny a claim or portion of a claim must be made by a qualified human professional who independently reviews the facts, verifies any AI-generated information, and documents the basis for that decision. The bill also strengthens transparency for consumers by requiring insurers to identify the decision maker and affirm that an algorithm was not the sole basis for the denial. This legislation is about accountability and restoring confidence for policyholders. When a policyholder suffers a loss of a family, relies on their insurance coverage, they deserve assurance that a trained human being, not a computer, made the final determination under Florida law. Members, HB 527 protects consumers, promotes responsible innovation, and positions Florida as a national leader in insurance oversight. That is the bill.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, we'll move to questions. There is a strike all amendment. Members, any questions? Seeing no questions, we will move to the amendment. So, Representative, you have an amendment, bar code 245389. You're recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The strike all amendment preserves the heart of the original bill, requiring a qualified human professional to review and make decisions on denials, but it strengthens and expands the framework to provide broader consumer protections and clearer regulatory oversight. It expands the scope of the bill to include workers' compensation and health maintenance organizations. It explicitly allows insurers to use AI to assist in claims processing and removes the word adjust to clarify that a qualified human professional is only required to review denials, not to fully readjust the claim, and it creates penalties for violations of this statute.
Members, are there any questions on the amendment? Ex officio Tant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions. In respect to your last comment, when you said that AI can, a qualified human has can only be used to review denials. What about overpayments of claims or inappropriate payments of claims? Is a qualified person used then?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the strike all in this bill in particular only focuses on the denial of claims, the partial denial of claims, or the decision to reduce a claim. If an overpayment is made and AI is used to generate that overpayment to a consumer, this bill does not address that. We're specifically focused on when there's a reduction in coverage or a reduction or a denial of a claim.
Representative Tant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we currently have a complete baseline on how much or how often AI is currently used with the insurance practices, and does DOI track that?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, Representative Tan, as we all know, AI is pretty new in regards to how it's being utilized in this space. I can tell you the genesis of this bill came to me when with the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. One of the alleged motives was the denial basis company, and there's currently a class action that shows allegedly that 90% of their claims were denied with errors when they utilized AI. So as I was researching it, that's what brought my attention to it. But we do not currently have a framework under OIR as it pertains to what is currently being utilized by AI by our carriers.
Last
Guys,
question.
one more follow-up? Yes.
Thank you. This is it. In regards to the algorithm used, will you include a provision in the bill that will require those algorithms to be reviewed by Department of Insurance so that we can be assured that they're correct algorithms?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are not currently contemplating, that is not in the current bill as contemplated.
Representative Botana, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Chair. Representative, quick question. Does this bill apply to surplus lines?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill does not currently apply to surplus lines carriers.
Follow-up. Good. Representative Woodson, you're recognized for a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Cassell, I know one of my questions being asked, and thank you for the clarification. My other question has to do with the definition. I'm a strong proponent of definition, and I noticed in the original bill, the definition was taken from the European Union. However, I'm not seeing where you are addressing the explicit and implicit objectives in the bill. Could you tell me why was that one part of the definition was left out in the bill?
You're recognized.
And the strike all?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeking clarification, you didn't tell me specifically which definition you're referring to.
Implicit, as it relates to the explicit and implicit definition that you had.
A question right now over some of the definitions in this bill, but a lot of some back and forth here about this, what the representative called a growing challenge in insurance when it comes to denials from algorithms and AI. So this bill would require a qualified human, to review any denials by insurance companies. We were going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to get you back to this hearing going on, talking about mandatory human review of claim denials when it comes to insurance. This is Representative Cassell who is speaking right now. She was just asked a question about how this compares to regulations in other states. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Using tools like AI can help insurance companies become more efficient, help with scales of economy, and help hopefully potentially lower those costs. So we want AI to be utilized for the right reason. So we didn't want to draft legislation that completely curtailed the innovation of AI. That's why this bill is really prescriptive in making sure that we're only addressing those situations where a consumer needs those added protections, when you're denying a claim in whole or in part, or when you're making the determination to reduce that coverage. So I didn't extensively look to other states. I did look to California, and we made the determination that we want AI, we want businesses in the state of Florida to know AI is a tool, but we're gonna make sure that we put guardrails up in places where consumers need added protections.
You good? Representative Gonzalez-Pittman, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing this great bill forward, Rep. Cassell. HMOs frequently delegate the review authority to contracted clinicians. Does the definition of qualified human professional ensure that the reviewer is appropriately credentialed for the type of claim being denied?
You're recognized.
Thank you. So currently, the definition for qualified human professional relates back to the insurance code that as long as they have the authority to adjust and deny a claim under the Florida Insurance Code, they have the authority to do it in the HMO space as well.
Representative Henson, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Representative. It's my understanding that the White House, the federal government, is trying to create a block from the states to the states from creating these regulations that you deem quite important. I guess my question is, have you done any, I don't know really, what can we do to either prevent this, or have you had any discussions at the federal level to see how we can move forward expeditiously and more victoriously with our regulations?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that question. So states have are granted the authority to regulate insurance under the McCarran-Ferguson Act of 1945. So that is something that the states solely have the authority to regulate. So any executive order that preempts states as it pertains to enacting legislation regarding AI usage would be related to things that the federal government has the authority over us, which they do not have the authority to regulate insurance because that is solely delegated to the states to regulate. So I am of the mindset that any executive order which comes out, which might dictate what we can and can't do with AI, would specifically exclude insurance because the federal government doesn't have the authority to regulate insurance in the state of Florida. That is solely left to the states.
Good. Any other questions on the amendment? Seeing no further questions, we will now take public testimony on the amendment. First up, we have Richard Chait, Florida Workers Advocates, a proponent of the bill or the amendment? Of the amendment. So waiving in support of the amendment. Thank you, sir. Thomas Koval, Florida Insurance Council, is an opponent on the amendment. Speak. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. I'm happy to have you before this committee again on this AI issue, but we have some particular issues as related to the amendment that was filed, I guess, within the last day or so. In any event, because it includes workers' compensation, as a general proposition, we don't think that this over intrusion into how we use AI in the industry is necessary. But I'm going to focus on the amendment as it relates to workers' compensation. First of all, we have to understand that, and maybe this is a relevant issue, but it seems relevant to some of us, but that the policyholder in a workers' comp situation is the employer, not the injured worker. This does focus on the right of an action by an injured worker against the insurance carrier. Now, the injured worker is a third-party beneficiary of the policy. The policy ensures the employer's compliance with their obligations if they didn't have insurance to pay benefits. So what we have to look at really is, and what we believe is two things. There really is the amendment creates a right of action against the carrier for violation of this section. But the section really deals with just how AI is implemented in the claims decision process. Now, this is a little different than the usual insurance coverage situation where you have circuit court claims, you bring lawsuits. The Division of Workers' Comp and the Office of Insurance Regulation regulate the workers' comp system. We have our own judges. We have an administration, the DWC, Division of Workers' Comp, that does claims audits, that have all of the obligation to regulate this system to deliver the benefits. And the reality is, even if there is some complication in either the documentation on what the AI was used for or whatever, to the extent there may not be a harm any different than what exists today if an employee is not paid a certain benefit that they are entitled to or they believe they're entitled to, they go to the judge of compensation claims. If they don't like that decision, they go to the First District Court of Appeals. And so they have a specialized court available to them. And that this is a process, or I should say a system, that is very well regulated. There are claims audits, there are market conduct, there are all sorts of examinations. We see in the industry that the division can come in and say, well, you underpaid a claim. And they can order us to pay. They can also assign penalties if we're out of compliance in terms of market conduct examinations. And I think what strikes us too is that the workers' comp system works pretty good. It is probably the most affordable and most available insurance process and program in the state of Florida right now. So we don't see the need. We think that the provision of a cause of action against a carrier for these ministerial type of decisions, it's more than just ministerial, it's a decision-making process, but it doesn't harm the claimant in terms of his redress or his access to the ability to get his benefits. So having just seen this, the amendment this morning, and given our history with workers' comp for many decades, we just don't think this is a necessary provision. Some people will talk to the bill in general, but this is one thing that we don't think workers' compensation is an appropriate system to be pulled into this regulatory basis, given that we've already have the regulation in place. So, and we hate to see the costs, et cetera, associated with creating a cause of action to create litigation where really no litigation is really supportable in this situation. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Robert Passmore, American Property Casualty Insurance Association, is an opponent of the amendment. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Bob Passmore, Department Vice President at the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, better said is APCIA. We're the leading national trade association. Together, our members write 57% of the property casualty insurance in the United States and the 60% approximately of the property casualty insurance in Florida. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today, as well as with Vice Chair Castle, taking time to discuss with my colleagues ahead of the committee meeting, and would appreciate the opportunity to continue that dialogue. AI has the potential to improve accuracy, efficiency, and speed in claims processing, which benefits customers through faster settlements and better service. While the bill has been amended favorably in our view, we have concerns that HB 527 imposes some requirements that could limit the use of AI in claims handling, reducing efficiency and speed, ultimately to the detriment of consumers who expect timely resolutions. There's significant activity at the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, which is meeting in Florida today as it happens, on AI governance and standards. Allowing that work to develop and evolve could provide a more consistent and informed framework rather than creating state-specific mandates that may conflict with national efforts. As for the areas of our concern on the bill, the requirement that a human must analyze all aspects of the claim independently of the output from the AI, that raises some concerns and could reduce the benefits of the AI tools. AI tools are most effective when they're in helping with quickly analyzing large amounts of information, and therefore can be effective in reducing delays and errors. The concern is that the requirement could have the effect of slowing down claims processing and increase costs without improving outcomes for policyholders and claimants. And we're also concerned about the bill's definition of AI, that it might be overly expansive. We think it captures a lot of long-standing systems that have been in use for decades, and could unintentionally regulate tools that are not truly AI. Some examples would be tools that are used to efficiently schedule field inspections, property claims, or assign claims to claims handlers with the correct knowledge and experience to handle them. Slower claims processing and decreased efficiency could lead to increased claim costs, the burden of which would ultimately fall on consumers when reflected in their premiums, and impacting affordability. So we share the sponsor's goal of ensuring fairness and transparency in claims handling. We welcome the opportunity to work collaboratively to refine the bill so that it protects consumers without stifling innovation, aligns with emerging NAIC standards, and recognizes the practical benefits of AI, addressing legitimate concerns about oversight and accountability. Thank you for considering these points. We look forward to continuing the dialogue and working together on solutions that balance consumer protection and technological progress. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will now move to debate. Are there any members wishing to debate on the amendment? Representative Henson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I felt the guy with the workman's compensation issue had some critical talking points, issues that I don't know if he has had an opportunity to meet with you and talk to you about. I didn't think so. So I'm hoping you two can get together and talk about how to rectify some of the issues that he brought to our attention here today, as well as we had an AI panel here before, and we talked about how efficient AI could be. I understand how the errors could also be a problem, where I didn't know your bill was going to eliminate AI and make it all human. I thought there would be a combination. It is a combination. Thank you. So if you would clarify all that in your closing for me. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Woodson, recognizing debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rep. Cassell, my question had to do with the definition on line 14, where you define artificial intelligence, which is similar to what I was looking at, in the AI Act and the European nation. What you have in there is similar to that. So I hope we can have a discussion about making it clearer, such as what I mentioned to you, to include implicit and explicit instructions to ensure that it applies to all new artificial intelligence. That's what I was referring to. The definition that you have is similar to that one that I was reading in the Act. So I hope you understand that. We can work on that, and so we can move it forward. And
Representative Tant, you're recognizing debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I like the rewrite. I like the fact that you did include the fact that humans will be involved with AI. I think that was an important catch. I do have some concerns about some of the testimony that was offered today, about some of the points that were made.
Debate over this bill continuing in Tallahassee right now. Some of the lawmakers expressing some concerns and some questions about this bill that would require mandatory human review of any claim denials from insurance companies. Right now, we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and want to move off of the AI topic for a little bit, but get you to another committee meeting right now in Tallahassee. They are hearing, this is excuse me, I want to make sure I get this right, the Health Professions and Programs Subcommittee that is meeting right now. So that is a House subcommittee hearing a briefing about the state of medical marijuana research right now. So let's go ahead and listen in live here.
That CE program has traditionally focused primarily on the rules and regulations around certifying patients. There's a new component now that provides an overview on the evidence of effectiveness and safety, which we are providing. And I think that's a really nice addition to allowing clinicians access to the most up-to-date information. I mentioned we also have a grants program. Over the life of the consortium, we have received 181 proposals so far, and we have awarded 62 to faculty from 8 member institutions in the amount of more than $4 million now. So this is all seed funding to get researchers involved in research in the state to focus on medical marijuana effectiveness and safety. And it allows them to develop pilot data, answer small questions, but mostly develop pilot data to seek bigger funding like available from NIH and alike. So memory, that's what I'm going to talk about the next 20 minutes, actually. So that's my baby, Medical Marijuana Clinical Outcomes Repository. So this is a large data repository that unifies a lot of data that allows us to follow patients longitudinally who are using medical marijuana to see what their outcomes are. So the core of memory is the Medical Marijuana Use Registry, MMUR, which is held by the Office of Medical Marijuana Use within DOH. That includes information on all patients who are certified to use medical marijuana, and it also includes their purchase history. So we can look at who purchased what when. And this information then is linked to several other databases. On the bottom, you see all vital records. So we have fetal death records, the general Florida death records, as well as birth records, which give us information on birth weight, for example, preterm deliveries and things like that, as well as causes of death. And then on the top, you see claims data. Claims data is essentially the detail that Medicare and Medicaid reimburses clinical providers for the services that they're providing to patients. Claims data come with detail on diagnosis and procedures that patients received. And it also comes with detail on medications that were dispensed. So we can look at what sort of health history patients have before they start medical marijuana. And we can also look at what health history follows or what sort of outcomes patients have when they are starting medical marijuana. We can develop comparison groups of patients with similar health history and compare their outcomes with those who are using medical marijuana. So this is a fairly unique resource that is now nationally, when we're looking at the national research enterprise around medical marijuana, if you will, and it's research ready for all faculty from consortium members. And so in the next slides, I show you some of the information that we're gleaning from this now. I did look at the presentation that you heard a few weeks back from the Office of Medical Marijuana Use, and there were a few questions that representatives had. So I thought I'd start with that, answering some of that and give you some of the information that you might be interested in. So one was about the types of certifications and how this might have changed over the history of the medical marijuana program in the state. So you see here the percent of medical qualifying medical conditions for patients who have new certifications per year. And on the bottom, the legend, you see the types of certifications we have. So you see that between 2017 and 2019, the majority was focused on pain. That's the blue portions of these bars. And that has shifted since 2020 to have a larger representation of post-traumatic stress disorder. And when I say PTSD, that also includes conditions that are similar in kind as the statute allows. So that's essentially mostly anxiety. So there has been a shift from pain to anxiety, and then the other big part that has also grown is multiple sclerosis, and that again also includes similar in kind conditions, which would be muscle spasms and the like. So there is definitely a shift in the types of patients who are seeking medical marijuana. And the 2019 to 2020 shift, you see that there's also an increase in the total number of certifications. That coincides with the time that smokable product became available. In terms of age at first certification, there has also been a shift. If we're looking at the age distributions, they are stacked on top of each other. We see that on the top turquoise, the largest proportion of patients when the medical marijuana program started was really among older individuals, so 55 years and older. And that has compressed in return for an increase in patients in the younger age group. So in particular, that green portion you see, 25 to 34-year-olds, and below 18 to 24-year-olds have grown more in comparison to the other populations. This line that is superimposed on here basically gives you the total number of new certifications per year. So that has been fairly steady. It's just that the age distribution has changed. And again, we see that there is a little bit of an influence of the type of basically the smokable product that became available. And then lastly, basically this is the combination of the two slides that I showed you before. So this is essentially the distribution of the qualifying medical conditions per age group, now compressed across all the calendar years. And so what we see here is that among the younger patients, PTSD is definitely the dominating qualifying medical conditions. And then as we're going into older age groups, pain and muscle spasms, MS, essentially starts to play a larger role, as does cancer. We see that there is a little bit of a larger distribution of cancer in children as well. And then in 55 years and older, we see that this population is growing as well. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea who the medical marijuana users are in the States. As you probably know, we are now at about close to 1 million patients who are currently certified to use medical marijuana. So in memory, this outcomes repository that I just introduced to you, we have several ongoing studies, and that's just for your information because none of this is available yet. But this is what is happening, and I'm hoping that the next time I'm presenting to you, I can show you some of these results. But I show you some other results. You noted when we were looking at the age distribution that there was this tiny little red sliver, which was basically patients that are children, so less than 18 years old. They're almost non-existent in the whole medical marijuana population. So here what we did is we linked the children who are certified to use medical marijuana with our Medicaid data as well to look at their medical history because we were curious how that looks like. So in the total program from 17 to 23, we have about 3,000 children who were certified and who purchased medical marijuana products. And in the anti-Medicaid program for the same time period, we have more than 3 million patients. So that gives you the proportion of children that we were able to link. So the linked proportion is then this 1,366 children, and you see the age distribution. So the vast majority is really among teenagers. Very few, really, just 100, a little bit more than 100 children who are less than 12 years old. So if we're looking at their medical qualifying conditions, we see a similar pattern than what we saw before. PTSD is the dominant one, but then epilepsy actually has a larger proportion, which makes sense because there even is a prescription drug that is approved for a very specific type of epilepsy that contains cannabis. So we know that there is a certain efficacy in this specific indication. Now, if you're looking at the medical history of these patients, so this is again the patients that were linked with the Medicaid data, and here we're honing in specifically on the patients who had a qualifying medical condition being epilepsy. So we have 320 patients who got medical marijuana for epilepsy per the certification. And if we're looking at 1 year of data preceding when they started medical marijuana, this is the types of diagnosis that they actually received from allopathic healthcare providers, if you will. So you will see that 60% of them had epilepsy. That's expected, right? Because they were basically certified to use medical marijuana for epilepsy. But then we also see a fairly large proportion have a history of neurodevelopmental disorders. Those travel commonly together, so patients with more, children with more severe neurodevelopmental disorders commonly have epilepsy. So that gives you a picture of that these are children who really do have serious conditions. You see that there are non-hereditary nervous system disorders, congenital anomalies, 13%, that is much higher than you would expect. Chromosomal anomalies, that would be things like Down syndrome, another 12%. So this is definitely a patient population that does need a lot of care outside of the medical marijuana use, for sure. So then looking at the children who are using PTSD, who are using medical marijuana for PTSD. So PTSD is actually the fourth of these bars. So trauma and stressor-related disorders, this is where PTSD falls into. So the patients that were certified to use medical marijuana for PTSD, only 18.8% actually have a diagnosis about PTSD in their medical history preceding that 1 year before medical marijuana was initiated. And what you see is that neurodevelopmental disorders are quite high. We have still 50%, and then you see anxiety makes 29%, and we mentioned already that PTSD and anxiety travel together in the certifications. Now, with regard to these neurodevelopmental disorders, which does seem to be the predominant health issue that these patients have, this is predominantly autism. So when we looked specifically at these patients' health history, almost all of them are patients that have autism. Now, as you know, autism is not a qualifying condition per se yet, but it is very clear that there is an interest in caregivers of children with autism to use medical marijuana. We did look a little bit into the efficacy on this. There is no controlled study that we could find that has looked at specific effectiveness in this population, but there are a good number of case reports, and there certainly are. There's a lot on the web from caregivers and families of children with autism who seem to be interested in cannabis. So I thought that might be interesting to share with you. Definitely an area where more research should be conducted in. So in the same population, we also looked at their inpatient emergency and urgent care because obviously we are interested in the safety. So what you see here, again, they are sliced by younger children and then teenagers. In the left side, younger children, right side, teenagers. And then we are comparing the percent of patients who sought inpatient emergent or urgent care for very specific conditions within the medical marijuana users versus the general Medicaid population as a reference. So what we see, the very top is encounters for some certain infectious diseases. That makes perfect sense. The most reason why children see clinical care is typically because they have an infection. One thing that we do see, though, is that the medical marijuana users have more of them compared to the general Medicaid population. Same about nausea and vomiting. So I highlighted a few with these red bars to show you where there are some clear differences when we're comparing medical marijuana users and the general population. Tobacco-related disorders in the teenagers, we see more among the medical marijuana users. Superficial injury is higher. Cannabis-related disorders are higher. I'd like to draw your attention to this. So among the medical marijuana users, we have 5.8% who carry a diagnosis of cannabis-related disorder that is given at an inpatient emergent care or urgent care visit versus 1.5 in the general population. Circulatory signs and symptoms, a little bit of an elevated numbers here for the younger patients. And then asthma, 4.9% for the medical marijuana users versus 0.1% in the general population. Now, we need to keep in mind that the medical marijuana users also have a health history that is definitely severe. So it's not clear whether these are really results of medical marijuana exposure or whether this is simply a selection of the patients who seek medical marijuana. And that is something that we will now address in larger studies. Here's a little bit more of that just to illustrate.
Some interesting research being discussed right now in front of this Florida House subcommittee as we are hearing an expert who has conducted a lot of research into medical marijuana here in the state of Florida. As you heard her say just a few minutes ago, we are approaching about 1 million medical marijuana users in the state of Florida, and one of the things they are tracking are the reasons for getting that medical marijuana card or prescription. So also hard to hear some of what is kind of triggering all of that. One of the things that she was also most recently discussing is children and children on Medicaid there, and you can see some of the breakdown there about emergency room visits. So it is interesting to see some of those numbers when it comes to the research that these groups are performing and looking into the medical marijuana use here in Florida. Right now we're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Give you a live look at Kia Center, the home of the Orlando Magic. We're just a few hours away now from a tip-off between the Magic and the Heat. Not just a normal game, though. We're talking quarterfinals in the NBA Cup. So some stuff on the line tonight at 6 o'clock when that game tips off. I want to bring in independent reporter Sean Green, who joins us live now via Zoom. And Sean, always good talking with you. We appreciate you joining us this afternoon on Fox 35 News Plus.
You as well, Garrett. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. So who would have thought the Magic now in the quarterfinals and really looking a lot better than they were at the start of the NBA Cup, I think.
Yeah, listen, they went 4-0 in the NBA Cup. They won their group. It was really the best they have looked as a team was when they were playing NBA Cup games. And when the NBA Cup started, the Magic really kind of turned it on and were starting to figure stuff out. So it's good to finally get to some meaningful games here. And it's going to be a tough challenge, especially without one of your best players. But the Magic are definitely figuring it out as of late.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Franz, because it sounds like by a lot of indications, that's something that could have been a whole lot worse than it really was.
Yeah, Garrett, I watched it. And I think just like the NBA world, the sports world, we watched and we're like, that might be a season-ending injury. It did not look good. It looked very similar to the Klay Thompson torn ACL from many years ago. And that's where I think fans got a little nervous. And the Magic got the best news they possibly could have with a high ankle sprain. Shams Charania of ESPN said that usually with those type of injuries, it's about 2 to 4 weeks. So, I mean, the best case scenario for the Magic. Right now, you could be talking about a completely different, outlook for the rest of the season. and now you're talking about one of your best players only being out for about a month. So all accounts it's really good news for the Magic and Franz.
How do the Magic adjust, or what do they need to do to, that's a hole that's hard to fill. But how do they do it? What do they need to do?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because, with Paolo out, Franz, it's kind of been every season now, the last 2 years where, maybe Paolo goes out and then Franz steps up, right? And Franz kind of takes over as the lead man. And then obviously Franz went down at the same time last year, and the team had to figure it out. And that was kind of the learning, phase of that team. I think this year it's going to be kind of similar, but this time you have Paolo back. Paolo is back from his injury. So realistically, it's going to be almost kind of very similar to a couple weeks ago, where the team is trying to gel, trying to figure it out without Paolo. And I said it might have been good for the team because you're trying to figure out adding Desmond Bain in, adding Tyus Jones in, and they kind of figured it out. But then it was going to be a whole other issue adding Paolo back in and working that. Now I think it's going to be almost semi-easier because you don't have Franz there. You can work Paolo back in, and Paolo's going to be your number one option. So I think it's a little bit easier, but at the same time, you still got to figure it out, and you got to figure it out quick because you got some tough games ahead.
Yeah, and let's talk about tonight against the Heat. We've seen them face off quite a bit already. They are battling it out in the Eastern Conference, identical records, but Magic ahead in the conference kind of rankings right now. So what does this game mean for the Magic, not just in the context of the NBA Cup, but in the context of kind of where we are in the season right now?
So it is important to note, now that the Magic are facing the Heat tonight in this, quarterfinal NBA Cup game, that will mean that the Magic are playing the Heat 5 times this season. They usually face off 4 times. I think it is important to note that because of that, there are playoff implications coming towards the end of the year. If the Magic and the Heat have a very similar record and they're trying to win the division, like, this can come into play. This is a major game. If the Magic go out and win this game tonight, they will make sure that they have a winning record, at least against the Heat, right? So if they have the same record at the end of the season, they'll have, the wins against them to take it. The Heat have been playing without Tyler Hero, their best player, for a majority of the season. They've only had him for 5 of their games, and that's what makes their team very impressive. They've done it without him. So I think for the Magic tonight, it is about tonight and trying to move forward in the NBA Cup, but it's also looking ahead and saying, this is a rival, this is their rival, and it would be massive if they can go up 3-0 on the Heat in this early NBA season.
Yeah, that would be huge. There's no doubt about that. So what will you be looking for? What will be some positive signs out of the gate if things are looking right for the Magic tonight against the Heat?
I think really the person I would look at is Paolo Banchero. He has really struggled in his career against the Heat, and that makes sense. Eric Spoelstra is one of, if not the best coaches in the NBA, and he really takes Paolo's strengths away. They really don't give him any good, easy looks anytime they play the Heat. But tonight, you need him. You need him to score 30+. And I think if Paolo is struggling tonight, you could see this game get out of hand. Because the Magic just don't have... They have Desmond Bain for sure, and they have Jalen Suggs, who's really come on as of late offensively. But without Franz's, 20+ points a game, you need Paolo to step up and kind of be the 1A option that the Magic need him to be. So if I'm a Magic fan, or if I'm going to watch the game tonight, I'm looking to see how Paolo performs, because that's really going to tell you how he kind of goes moving forward.
Been some interesting games against the Heat so far this season. I'm sure tonight will be no exception.
No, it should be very interesting. These teams do not like each other. They just played literally 3-4 days ago or 5 days ago. The Heat literally just said they feel like they're always in Orlando. That is pretty accurate. They've been here like 4 or 5 times in the last 2 months with preseason and now regular season. So I'm sure the Heat really don't like losing here. So you expect them to really come out firing on all cylinders to try and get a win.
I would imagine that just kind of really ramps things up when you're playing so much in a short amount of time, when you already are rivals and there already is some of that chippiness between the two teams.
100%. If you go back and look at the last couple matchups, I mean, you had Tyler Hero last season make a crazy buzzer beater against the Magic in Orlando. You have a couple nights ago, Bam Adebayo doesn't make a shot where Orlando wins by a point. The games against Orlando and the Heat are kind of ridiculous. They are kind of crazy. Your heart pumps a little bit more. You get a little bit more nervous. But they are really good basketball games. And in an NBA that defense is not a premium, these two teams kind of bring it against each other.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing it tonight, 6 o'clock. Sean Green, we appreciate you joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus to talk about it.
Thank you so much, Garrett. I appreciate it.
As we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, going to give you that live look right now at Kia Center. Again, 6 o'clock is tip-off, and we're looking forward to that one. Keep it here on Fox 35 News Plus. More to come.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. As we get closer to 2 o'clock, I do want to let you know a couple of things that are going to be coming up in that hour. At 2:16, we have a SpaceX Falcon 9 launch from Cape Canaveral, so we will take that live. We are also watching for a news conference at the Osceola County Sheriff's Office where they're going to talk about 2 cold case homicides that have now been solved, resulting in 1 arrest. They say one of those they actually determined and believed to be a self-defense case, so no arrest, no charges there, but they have solved them both and made an arrest in the other case. So we'll talk more about that coming up in just a little bit, but around 2:30 when we expect the sheriff in Osceola County to talk about that and be joined by some family members of those victims as well. Talk about some of the other cold cases that they are looking at. So that is just one of the things that we're keeping an eye on as we get closer to that 2 o'clock hour and welcoming in our TV audience for Florida Live. It's been a busy day at the state capitol. I do want to make sure we talk about this, a bill to create a Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day moved forward, reported favorably out of committee today by the Senate Governmental Oversight and Accountability Committee. This would designate every October 14th as Charlie Kirk a Day of Remembrance. There was some interesting back and forth between Senator Jonathan Martin, who proposed this bill, and some other lawmakers, specifically Democrats, including Democratic Senator LaVon Bracey Davis, a Democrat from Ocoee, who had some questions about this. So I want to play you a little bit of that hearing earlier today. as this Senate committee debated a Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance in the state of Florida.
Thank you, Chair. Committee, this bill designates October 14th each year as Charlie Kirk Day in the state of Florida. It's to remember and recognize his work, his influence on civil engagement, youth leadership, and constitutional education. The day does not create a state holiday or mandate closures. It simply recognizes contributions that shaped a generation. Charlie Kirk made a national impact by encouraging young Americans to think critically, engage in civic life, and stand up for constitutional freedoms. He inspired millions to participate in public dialogue, defend their beliefs respectfully, and understand their rights and responsibilities as citizens. His work helped build a movement of young leaders who are active in promoting limited government, free speech, and American values. He motivated an entire generation to get involved, ask questions, and learn to defend the principles that make our country strong. That's why it's imperative that the state of Florida honors Charlie Kirk and the legacy he's created. That's the bill.
Great. Thank you, Senator. Are there questions on the bill? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. You mentioned the word contribution. Can you identify what historically significant contributions Charlie Kirk has made to the state of Florida particularly that would justify a state-designated Day of Remembrance?
You're recognized, Senator.
Hi, thank you. Charlie Kirk visited many college campuses, high schools, spoke to thousands of people many times throughout the state of Florida, specifically attacking this issue that you have to stay silent when somebody says something that you disagree with. And I think he challenged a generation that grew up in a time where political violence that we saw was kind of creeping into America. And he said, and he not just said it numerous times, but the way he presented his various arguments on various topics fought back at that very issue, that the only way to attack somebody's political beliefs is through violence. And Charlie Kirk encouraged people to dissent. He encouraged people to debate. He encouraged people to convince him that he was wrong. And he introduced what many of us, when we went to college, believed was the whole point of going to college, which was to debate, to listen, to learn, to sharpen your ideas, to spend time with people that you disagree with. And he reintroduced that back into civic life, and for many who had not seen that when they left for college. So I think that that's the legacy that he left with me. That's the legacy I know he left with many people. And it ties in directly with what our founders thought was extremely important in our country, which is why they memorialized the right to free speech as the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. It's the most important, and Charlie Kirk embodied that and left that legacy with thousands of college students who saw him in person here in the state of Florida, but also left, as I'm sure you saw at the funeral, tens of millions of people around the world were glued to their TV screens shortly after his tragic assassination. And that rippled through not just Florida, but every state in the country. But I'm happy that I think Florida will have, will memorialize October 14th, his birthday, as Charlie Kirk Day, so that we can continue to tell his story to future generations. Thank you.
Follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are you aware of Charlie Kirk's public statements minimizing racism and denying systemic discrimination? Do you believe those views reflect the values of Floridians?
Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that question. And I'm actually very thankful that you asked that question, because now when people are watching here on the Florida channel, I'm sure much of this will be retweeted. I think it's extremely important that when somebody analyzes what someone says, you look at 100% of the context and where they're speaking, who they're speaking to, and also that you don't just take out a 1 minute or a 30-second or a 15-second clip, especially when someone's speaking for hours on end. Every single comment that I saw that I didn't like, whether it was reported through CNN or the BBC, some entity was trying to splice out individual comments that Charlie Kirk said. I think there were like 5 or 6 that I saw on some of those news sites. I went back and I actually watched the debate. I think if you look at the context, there's not a single thing that he said that would disgust any American, any reasonable American. He spoke on issues that were extremely volatile, and he did it in a way that he encouraged people of all backgrounds to disagree with him, but he also met them where they were at, and he spoke truth. And he said, when you look at the whole context, what he actually said the entire time he was addressing any individual, I don't see the conclusion, I don't arrive at the same conclusion that those in the media that were trying to attack Charlie arrived at.
Follow up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's interesting, you made mention that you didn't hear, to paraphrase, any comments that would discuss a single American. Charlie Kirk stated on July 13th, 2023, that Black women such as Joy Reid, Michelle Obama, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson do not have the brain power possessing to be taken seriously, and had to steal a white person's slot. How do you justify designating a state remembrance day for someone who publicly claims Black women lack basic intelligence and only succeed by stealing opportunities?
You're recognized.
Thank you. That wasn't an exact quote, but I'm happy to have a conversation with you and go through that entire transcript of that specific date. But every single time I saw Charlie Kirk speak about race, speak about the externalities of affirmative action and how it's played out, how it started off with good intentions, but it ended up in a bad position. He never once demeaned any individual and said that anybody was less than created in the image of God. Every person, regardless of their skin color, every person, regardless of their sex or their gender, every person is created in the image of God, and that's what Charlie Kirk spoke to. So I would love to talk to you about that specific quote, because it sounded more like a paraphrase, but I understand what you're saying. Let's get to the bottom of this, because Charlie Kirk did not say that some people were better than others. Charlie Kirk said that the government was doing that through their programs, but Charlie Kirk never said that any individual was not created in the image of God and didn't deserve every single inalienable right that the U.S. Constitution guarantees.
Follow up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You used the word previously, demean, that he didn't demean. Mr. Kirk told his audience that prowling Blacks roam cities for fun to target white people, language that echoes dangerously historically violent stereotypes. What compelling public interest is served by creating a state remembrance day for an individual who spreads rhetoric that can fuel fear, division, and racial tension in Florida communities?
You're recognized, Senator.
Thank you. I think it's for the reasons that I said before, and I'm happy to talk to you about those very, very narrow snippets. Charlie Kirk, every single time he got to the podium, reminded everybody that they were created in God's image, that they deserved, that they were entitled to the same rights as everybody else in this country, and that we must learn to debate and talk through our differences. And that's why Charlie Kirk should be remembered every single year.
Follow up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for offering to speak to me one-on-one. We didn't have that conversation prior to this bill. And you just made mention of what he said every time he got to the podium. Another time when he came to the podium, he stated that gun deaths are worth it. If the legislature is expected to take seriously the volume of human life and the value of human life in every policy discussion, how do we now elevate someone who has publicly argued that preventable deaths are acceptable, or an acceptable cost of ideology?
Senator Martin.
Thank you. Talking about gun deaths, Charlie Kirk was killed because of his political speech, because he was trying to debate on college campuses. If we remember the shooter more than we remember Charlie Kirk, we will never have free speech in this country. We must remember the victim to tell the shooter and to tell anybody who might commit political violence in the future, that the victims will be remembered more than they. If we don't remember Charlie Kirk, we're elevating the person who pulled the trigger. We're elevating the person who shuts down free speech. We must remember Charlie Kirk because he was a victim. He was a victim of somebody who didn't want him to speak. And you may not agree with everything he said. I don't agree with everything he said. But the main things that he fought for, they line up with our American values. They line up with our human values. And anybody in this room who's spoken longer than 15 seconds will have probably said something that they wish they could take back, or that they wish there was more context, or that they could explain further. Everybody in this room, myself included. But we must remember that even if somebody says something that you don't agree with, you don't have the right to take their life. You have the absolute 100% right, guaranteed by the Constitution of the United States, to debate them. Debate them until you're blue in the face. But you have no right to kill them. And that's why we must remember, that's why we must elevate, it's why we must forever have a Charlie Kirk Day in the state of Florida to remind those that wish to shut down debate, that if they shut down the debate, that the debate will live on longer than they will.
Additional questions, members? Senator Polsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
That was just part of the debate earlier today in that Florida Senate committee as they debated a statewide Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance. Again, it did pass favorably out of a committee of 5 yeas, 2 nays. Was the vote on that, and so that will continue to move forward, designating October 14th as a Charlie Kirk Day of Remembrance. Coming up on the 2 o'clock hour, I want to give you a live look right now, and you can see a great view from our Launch Credit Union camera along the Space Coast of Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, as we are about 20 minutes out from a launch of a Falcon 9 rocket carrying a classified payload for the National Reconnaissance Office. There has been a sonic boom advisory issued for that launch. You can see things are moving ahead with it. So some of the steam billowing out there as we get closer to that launch. We will have live coverage of that for you coming up in our 2 o'clock hour on the Florida Live. I want to let you know we are also standing by and waiting for a news conference about half an hour from now with some new details expected from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, where they are going to talk about 2 cold case homicides that have been solved, one of them resulting in an arrest. So the other one, they say they believe it to be a self-defense case, and so no one facing charges in that. But 2:30 is when we expect to hear from the Osceola County Sheriff, and we will take you there live. Also in our 2 o'clock hour, we're going to have our weekly chat on Florida politics with Kimberly Leonard from Politico, and there is certainly a lot to talk about there. So it is. We hope you stay with us coming up at 2 o'clock. Right now, though, we are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be back at the top of the hour. Welcome in our TV audience and get ready for another hour.
Florida Live starts now.
Well, good afternoon to you. Welcome into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35 TV. We've had a busy last 3 hours of live streaming on Fox Local. If you're just joining us on Fox 35 TV, we've got another busy hour ahead. I want to let you know a little bit of what we have coming up for you. And first, let me give you a quick live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Ahead of a launch, we're about 15 minutes out from that, and it is a Falcon 9 that is going to be launching, carrying a classified payload for the National Reconnaissance Office. So we will take you there live when that begins. We are also standing by and waiting for a news conference at the bottom of the hour from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, where they are going to be talking about two cold case homicides that have been solved. One of them they made an arrest in, the other one they believe to be a self-defense case. But we'll hear those details about their efforts and some of the other cold cases that they say they are working on right now. That, again, is scheduled for 2:30, and we will take you to that news conference live when it begins. But we are looking ahead as well to 3 o'clock and a meeting of the Claremont City Council where they're expected to talk about Walmart and delivery drones. Want to bring in Fox 35's Matt Trezza, who joins us live now via Zoom. And Matt, delivery drones, I mean, nothing says 2025 quite like talking about that in a city council meeting, I think.
Certainly. And so delivery drones, basically what they're going to vote on today at the Claremont City Council meeting is simply to allow the existing Walmart store that's here in Claremont to put up an 8-foot tall fence and allow them to have what's kind of seems like a shipping container set up in the back of their current parking lot. And what both of those things will do as a practical matter is allow them to set up their drone program for drone delivery here. Right now, the current regulations say that you can't put up a chain link fence of more than 6 feet. So they're asking for a variance on that. That's going to allow them to cordon off a special area in the parking lot of the Super Walmart here, where the drone staging area is going to be, where they're going to land and take off from, and also the large container near the back of the store where they're going to be storing the drones when they are not in use. So that's the last practical matter as far as local regulations go. The only hurdle that they have to overcome in order to have this drone delivery program from this local Walmart. And so it looks like it is going to be pretty much a rubber stamp as far as the city council action goes, because city staff is already strongly recommending that they approve this measure. That's going to be at 3 o'clock today. We're going to watch the meeting and see whether or not that happens. But again, it looks like this is going to sail through. And then I spoke with the city's deputy administrator, who said that he thinks as far as getting this program literally off the ground after that, it should probably be a matter of months.
And Matt, this is interesting timing too, because not talking a different part of Lake County, but in Lake County, the closure of the Kroger delivery facility in Groveland. And so it's kind of interesting to hear, one delivery, kind of shutting down, and then one looking potentially to kind of expand some services.
Yes, that's true. However, these are kind of apples and oranges as far as the practicalities of that go, simply because there are limitations when it comes to drone delivery. The Kroger delivery service that was shut down was a vehicle-based service. Simply, it would put your grocery goods in the back of the truck, deliver them to your door. Whereas this drone-based delivery can only deliver items within a 6 to 8 mile radius, according to Walmart's website, and only carry items of around 2 pounds or less. So it's not like you're going to be getting all your groceries, for example, delivered by drones this way. But it is certainly an interesting coincidence that we're having one major delivery system program shut down in Lake County and another one opening.
And certainly could be interesting to start seeing some of those drone deliveries on your doorstep or on your neighbor's doorstep. It's kind of fascinating technology and going to be interesting to see where things go.
For sure, absolutely.
Well, Fox 35's Matt Trezza, we appreciate you joining us for Florida Live this afternoon.
Happy to be here.
I want to bring in now Regina Gonzalez, joining us live now from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, and it is our Tampa Connection today, where we talk about some of the big stories going on in the Bay Area. And Regina, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. So great to be here with you.
So what are some of the stories you're tracking in the Bay Area today? I know there was a big news conference earlier today where we heard from officials with CAIR, this organization responding to the governor and his designation of this group as a terrorist organization.
Yeah, so I know this is basically a statewide story, but the CAIR Florida chapter actually held this news conference in Tampa, so we were able to send a crew. But it all started yesterday with this post on X when Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order labeling the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR, and the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, he wrote that all Florida agencies are now directed to undertake all measures to prevent unlawful activities by these organizations, including denying privileges of resources. In the executive order, the governor also claims that CAIR, which is a nonprofit founded to combat discrimination against Muslims, that they have had individuals associated with them who were convicted of providing or attempting to provide material support to foreign terrorist groups. And with that being said, CAIR's response has been very quick, very blunt, and today it was very public. The organization told the governor, quote, "See you in court." They argue that the order is unconstitutional, defamatory, and politically motivated. And then at that press conference in Tampa today, we saw leaders with CAIR say Governor DeSantis is, quote, targeting a minority community. They also told reporters that he, quote, needs to look at his job description and work to help Floridians not spread a false narrative about a certain group. So CAIR Florida basically said in their presser that they're preparing a legal challenge to strike down the governor's designation. And this also, I should mention, comes as the group is already suing Texas Governor Greg Abbott over a similar order issued in that state. So they said they're going to outline the grounds for their lawsuit in the coming days. And they argue the issue is bigger than their organization. They say it threatens the civil liberties of Florida's entire Muslim community. DeSantis, meanwhile, held a press conference in Miami on something completely unrelated, but he did take questions on this where he said, I welcome the lawsuit. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out for sure.
Yeah, going to be interesting. And, at that news conference, we also heard earlier, because we took it live on Fox 35 News Plus, heard them they were asked about Governor DeSantis' response to that. And they said, well, we welcome it too, and we will see him in the courtroom. So going to be interesting to see where things go from here with that. Now, speaking of the courtroom, I know a couple of high-profile trials that you're watching in your area as well.
Yes, I was actually doing some streaming myself earlier, and I felt like I was taking all these different cameras in different courtrooms, mostly in Hillsborough County and Pinellas County. But in Pinellas, there is a case involving a man named Shelby Neely. And the entire story that's been going on since 2018 is pretty wild. This is a look at him now. But he was convicted of brutally murdering not only his wife, but his wife's parents and the wife's brother, back in 2018. And today he had a Spencer hearing get underway in Pinellas County. So what that means is, although the jury recommended Neely be put to death, he's entitled to the Spencer hearing, which is a post-conviction hearing, and the defense has really one more opportunity to present any evidence or mitigating factors to try to convince the judge not to sentence Neely to death. Now, Neely had already been serving a 30-year sentence, and if you're not familiar with this case, try to follow me here. In January of 2018, he murders his wife, Jamie Ivancic. He then tries to cover up her death for 6 months by doing things like pretending to be her on her phone, texting her parents, saying, hey, how you doing? Everything's fine. But the parents are obviously concerned. Why haven't we seen our daughter for this extended period of time? So when they start to get suspicious, we're now in December of 2018, later that year, his wife's parents, Richard and Laura Ivancic, they try to contact, Neil Healy, and he ends up killing them. And then Jamie's brother, Nick Ivancic, at their Tarpon Springs home and tries to cover up their deaths, to the point where I actually remember covering this story when it was in court a couple of weeks ago. And I learned that he had a pizza delivered to their home to make it look like the family was home. So during the Spencer hearing this morning, his attorney brought attention to his mental state. The defense displayed brain scans and notes that showed significant abnormalities. A doctor then testified over video conference that these abnormalities impact the ability to control aggressive impulses due to a traumatic brain injury. And he also explained, as you're about to hear, that it can affect the ability to feel guilt and shame.
Common misconception is that impulses are only short-term, but you can have long-term inappropriate aggressive impulses because of traumatic brain injury.
So that was a little glimpse of that. And then doctors previously determined Neely had PTSD, noting his experience of being homeless and the suicide of his biological father had affected him. During the sentencing phase of Neely's trial, we heard from the surviving children of the Avancics. And, the Spencer hearing is expected to be pretty lengthy, but overall a very gruesome case and one that really sticks with you when you follow the story for an extended period of time.
Regina Gonzalez from Fox 13 Tampa Bay, we appreciate you joining us this afternoon for our Tampa Connection.
Absolutely, anytime. Have a good one.
You too. We are getting ready to head to break here on Florida Live. When we come back, we will get you to coverage of this launch that we expect in just a few minutes from our Space Coast, a launch carrying a classified payload from the National Reconnaissance Office. And we'll get you there on the other side of this break. Keep it here on Florida Live. Give you a live look right now at the Space Launch Complex 40 along at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. This live camera along Florida Space Coast from our Launch Credit Union camera. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here. We appreciate you joining us. We do want to join live SpaceX coverage here of this upcoming launch. It's a Falcon 9 that's expected to take off here in less than 2 minutes. Carrying a classified payload for the National Reconnaissance Office. They do several of these missions carrying these payloads to space. And This will be another one of those. There is a sonic boom advisory in effect for parts of the area, so you may watch out for that in the next few minutes. Also, after this launch, we do expect to see the first stage land back at the landing zone 2 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So we're about 90 seconds out from this launch. Let's go ahead and listen in live.
This closeout process is underway, which refers to venting and shutting down gaseous systems such as topping off the tanks and sealing vents to maintain pressure. Now we're standing by for confirmation that Falcon 9 will enter startup at the T-minus 1 minute mark.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
At this point, the autonomous flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and stages 1 and 2 are pressing for launch. Let's listen in to the launch director's final go.
MD is go for launch.
As you heard, we are go for launch. Let's listen in to the final seconds of the countdown.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Enroll 77. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Every chamber pressure is nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And in just a few seconds, we'll throttle the engines down in preparation for max Q, which stands for maximum dynamic pressure. It's the moment in the launch
telemetry nominal
when the vehicle experiences the greatest mechanical stress that it will see during its ascent. To help go from vertical to horizontal, the first stage also performed a gravity turn where the engine's gimbal small amount
supersonic
to turn the first stage from going straight up to horizontal with the help of gravity. Eventually, Falcon 9 will be roughly horizontal to Earth as we achieve orbit.
max Q.
Falcon 9 has just passed through max Q, and the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. You can track our progress to orbit by watching the left corner of your display, which is showing first stage velocity and altitude. We have several events coming up in quick succession, and we should hear them all called out by mission control. These include main engine cutoff, or MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start 1, and boost back burn. Main engine cutoff is when we shut down all 9 M1D engines on the first stage. Stage separation is when the first and second stages of Falcon separate from one another. Stage 1 flip is when the booster uses its nitrogen gas thrusters to flip the booster around. Next, second engine start 1, we will light the MVAC engine on stage 2 for the first time, and after that is boost back burn, when the engines will light to place stage 1 on a trajectory towards the landing zone. So keep an eye out for these events happening back to back.
Stage separation confirmed. Stage 1 boost back startup.
So stage separation confirmed there after that launch from Florida's Space Coast. Want to bring in Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist TJ Springer joining me now with our Florida Live forecast. And TJ, I love watching those.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, it never gets old, and we're seeing so many of them. And thankfully, the weather cooperated today with another one.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised yesterday seeing the one go off because it was pretty cloudy outside. But I'm glad they threaded the needle and were able to get it off. And That's crazy. It's almost like, it feels like it's almost every day that we have one. And it's just like, oh,
a lot of times
cool.
it is. Yeah, that's why it feels that way.
Yeah.
But we are still seeing a lot of clouds out there yet again today.
We are, yeah. It's definitely a little bit brighter than what it has been, but it's kind of cool out there today, Garrett.
And looks like it would be as well. We're gonna keep the launch up there so you can see both. But that live look at Lake Fairview, and it kind of has that little bit of a dreary look to it.
Dare I say wintry? I know it doesn't.
I didn't want to say it.
You know what? I knew you didn't want to say it. You know, there are so many other places that have gotten snow in the last few days. We are not one of those spots, but it's certainly a spot where we have felt a little more of a chill. That's for all of us in Central Florida, not just from our Grills Lakeside cab. You can see right now our Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar picture overall is quiet aside from far South Florida. A couple of showers trying to sneak in the far southern reaches of the peninsula, the Keys, in the wake of that cold front that moved through with a lot of rain over the weekend, at least to end our weekend. And now high pressure is settling in. I do think we'll see a little more sunshine as we head through the next 24 hours or so. But temperatures still going to be on the cooler side. We have that breeze coming in from the northeast off the ocean, almost 20 miles per hour sustained up near spots like Daytona, New Smyrna around 15. It's breezy inland as well. I think that wind going to be a little breezier through the next day or so. To the northwest, lows in the 40s. It's still going to be a morning where probably we'll want the jackets on Wednesday, Garrett, but then we'll warm up a little bit more in the afternoon, right around 70, which is pretty close to where we should be for this time of the year. We'll see a mixture of clouds and sunshine, but we are expecting another cold front to move our way later on in the work week. And this one, not going to move through with much fanfare like we saw over the weekend, but it does look to bring a little more cloud cover, maybe a stray sprinkle, but definitely another cool shot of air. And I'm thinking we'll probably want the jackets even more so as we head through the morning on Friday. Lows back into the 40s. That means some of our northwestern locales, Garrett, probably sneaking back close to 40, if not in the upper 30s, probably. Ooh. Friday morning.
Burr.
I know.
The chill already.
It's not going to be a bad weekend. At least right now, it's looking a lot brighter than what we saw this past weekend. I do think we'll probably have the potential for maybe a sprinkle or two as we're watching yet another system try to move our way. But it doesn't look like temperatures really get back above normal by a big amount, by a big number. It looks like we're going to be hanging kind of close to where we should be as we head through this upcoming weekend and beyond in the next week.
All right. Well, Fox 35 Storm Team Meteorologist TJ Springer, we appreciate you joining us for our Florida Live forecast.
Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate it.
We're going to take a break here on Florida Live, continuing to watch this launch as it carries this payload, a classified payload, into orbit. We'll be right back with more on Florida Live after this. Well, the first stage just landed back at landing zone 2 after separating, and it is now back at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. That is a live look. Welcome back in to Florida Live. Also want to give you a live look inside the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, where we are standing by for a news conference in a few minutes, where they're supposed to talk about 2 cold case homicides that have now been solved. But let's talk a little Florida politics here on this Tuesday afternoon. I want to bring in Kimberly Leonard, Politico reporter and the author of the Florida Playbook newsletter that you can get delivered in your inbox every morning. And Kimberly, always good talking with you. We appreciate you joining us here on Florida Live today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So it is a big day there in Miami, and we will get into that in just a minute. But I want to start with what you focused on in your Florida Playbook newsletter today. And we've been talking about it a little bit throughout the day here because of the big focus in Tallahassee this week and today, too. And that's AI and this tension between the state and the federal government and what happens from here with regulation.
Oh my goodness. So this is one place where, look, Governor DeSantis has worked very hard over the last year or so to try to get his relationship with Trump in a good place. But this is one area where he's just not backing down. He doesn't agree with how Trump wants to do an executive order that would essentially preempt any kind of state laws on AI. He says that Florida should have the right basically to protect people's jobs, set rules on, parental consent, use of AI, and all these other things. And so it just is a place where he's not willing to budge. And what we're seeing this week with Senate President Ben Albritton is he agrees with where Governor DeSantis is, but he says that, there's probably other areas that are more national, more global, that the federal government can handle. And then you have the House that's gone ahead with all of these different panel meetings this week. They're calling it Artificial Intelligence Week, but they insist that it's not to do any kind of regulation. They say it's actually to just have a discussion about different provisions in AI. So I was listening to a couple today. They're talking about, how the workforce has been impacted by artificial intelligence, how government agencies are using artificial intelligence in their work. And one really interesting conversation to come up actually was whether those queries would be subject to public records. So I thought that was very interesting. But there is a disagreement about, what the right thing is to do. But I think that DeSantis, he's been talking about it for months, this AI Bill of Rights. And so he's really going to be pushing for the legislature to do some kind of regulation. The question is then, are they going to be put in a spot where they have to sue? Are they going to aggressively speak out against what the Trump administration's doing? I'm not sure, but this whole thing is just very, very complicated, and the technology is moving so fast. So that's one piece that makes it even harder, even if they do come to an agreement on what to do.
That's a good point. Constantly evolving by the day, it seems, in some cases. All right, in Miami today, it is election day and the mayoral runoff that we've been talking about for a while. So where do things stand now that the polls are open a few hours from closing? And at some point, we will find out who ended up winning that race. Where do things stand?
Yeah, that's right. And polls close at 7. And look, I had Republicans, including the chair of the Republican Party of Florida, saying that they don't expect to win today. Emilio Gonzalez is the Republican on the ticket. And I should back up and say this is a nonpartisan job. It's supposed to be a nonpartisan race. When people fill out their ballots, it's not going to say Republican or Democrat next to it. You're just going to see 2 candidates. But the Democrat in the race has really had a lot of momentum going into this. She's very well known. She's been a member of the county commission downtown for a long time. And so people know her. They trust her. They see her record and those kinds of things. And what I will say is the final 2 people on the ballot are those who really do represent, a change, regardless of party, represent a change from sort of the status quo of Miami politics, which has involved a lot of drama, a lot of yelling, a lot of kind of circus-like behavior. They've both said they want to do away with that. And if you look at how each of them, treated each other, treated other candidates on stage, it's a very, very different different posture than what we've kind of seen in the past. So regardless of kind of who wins, which, you know, Democrats say it'll be them and Republicans say it won't be them. So, you know, they seem to kind of think it's the Democrat in the race. There does seem to be sort of this voter, I would say, like loud speaking out of saying that they are done with a lot of the drama and they want to really turn the page and have Miami be taken more seriously, because it's a bigger city. It's taking on a lot of international, you know, events beginning next year. And so it really just seems like there's a turning of the page that's happening.
And we will find out shortly what voters have to say there. Kimberly, we appreciate you joining us. I am going to have to take us live now to Osceola County, where the sheriff's office is giving an update on these two homicide cold cases that have now been solved. We know there's an arrest in one of them, the other one believed to be a self-defense case. So let's go ahead and listen in as Sheriff Christopher Blackman speaks to reporters.
While they're working the cold cases. I've supported this program since I came in June. We've met several times to discuss the cold case unit, and it's very worthy of our time and effort to give these families closures and answers. The attempt to resolve more cases that are out there, which we have on the wall here behind you. We have 6 faces up of the 32 remaining cases we have open. With those cases, we've asked anybody, if you recognize any of these people in there, have any tips or information about the folks on the screen, to please contact Crime Line and provide us any tips or information so we can try to resolve those cases. I would like to introduce Kelly McDonald, the mom of DeAndre. I want to discuss this case real quick. June 24 of 2007, June 24 of 2007, 18 years ago, 17-year-old DeAndre Wellnitz suffered a fatal stab wound to his chest. Had a house party, which is over off Ivy Lane in Kissimmee. After months of investigative work, the fatal stabbing in the case went cold. After the team here at the cold case unit picked up the case October 2024, a person of interest identified and located in Orlando in September of 2025. During the interview, that individual admitted that he was at a party in 2007. He said he was struck during a fight and he picked up a kitchen knife in defense of himself. And he stood and waved in an attempt to distance himself from the others of the party. During that process, DeAndre was stabbed, ultimately died from the stab wounds. The other case we're going to discuss is Yamil Baez-Quinones. This occurred on February 23rd of 2022. There were shots fired near the address of 305 Indian Point Circle in Kissimmee. 23-year-old Yamil Baez-Quinones was shot several times and pronounced deceased on the scene. The case was inactivated after exhausting all the leads we had at that time. The case was reopened in October of 2024. In May 22 of 2025, the Osceola County Sheriff's Office Homicide Unit obtained an arrest warrant for Luis Gonzalez. He was born 3/1 of 2012. The suspect was located and with the help of the U.S. Marshals, eventually arrested and booked to the Osceola County Jail. Luis Gonzalez was charged with first-degree manslaughter with a weapon and first-degree robbery with a firearm, which both are felonies. They were filed through the State Attorney's Office on September 19th of 2025. We provided you all with some brochures that Captain Montez has on the 6 faces on the wall here. Our hope is that somebody out there hearing this press conference will be able to help us with information and tips on these other cases, or hopefully somebody that's doing nefarious acts will see this and decide that they don't end up like these 2 gentlemen. Have any questions? Nope. I'll speak or no? I want to call up, you want to come up? I'll call up DeAndre's mother. I'd like to say something.
I would just like to thank the Osceola County Sheriff's Department for the amazing job that they did in investigating this case. 18 years, and an angel appeared, Detective Ruiz. And it was truly an answered prayer for this to be solved. I appreciate the empathy that was shown, as well as them being straightforward and honest with all the details. What it has done for me is given me closure to say that, you know, they actually investigated. They went through everything. She traveled out of state. She did an amazing job. And I'm able to stop playing the story that I played for 18 years over and over again in my head, that I'm able to see something different. I'm able to have peace now. And that would not have been possible if it wasn't for the hard work that they put in to solve this case. And I am forever grateful for that. They did an amazing, stellar job. And I'm so grateful. And I hope that in these other cases that if someone knows something, they come forward and help give the family some type of closure and some answers. Because, you know, solving the cases is not only about just having closure, it's also about having a resolve. Even if it's not what you think it should be, the resolve is everything. For me, I'm very satisfied with the outcome and with the work that was done, and I just like to thank everybody. Thank you.
Call out DeAndre's brother.
Hello, my name is Clarence Chappelle. I'm one of the younger brothers of DeAndre Wellnitz. And, you know, I was 15 when my brother was murdered, and that led me just down a really dark path. And I know there are many people watching today, many young people, even parents with young people, that maybe you don't know what to do with your kids. You don't know what's going on. But I just want to say that there's an answer. There's hope, that no one is too far gone. And I believe that if the community as a whole, from families, from church, from the sheriff's department, will come together and actually begin to just serve one another, I believe that we'll see things that have never been seen before. Law and order is not just something that's up to, you know, law enforcement, but it's God's design. Justice is God's design for the earth. And I believe that when the church begins to respond to what's happening in the community, even with events like this, even if you don't have any sort of connection to any of these names that you know, but the easiest way to get rid of the darkness is you just turn on the light. And so I want to invite the local church to reach out, to meet with Sheriff Blackman and see how you can get involved, to see, you know, a lot of this violence just come to an end. My brother was 17, had I believe a 3.5 GPA, had a great future ahead of him. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's not just his story, so many people. And so our choices matter, our small choices matter. And so I just want to encourage us as a community to start making those small choices in the right direction, to see wholeness and freedom come to our city and to our youth. So if you, and this is also if you know anything about any of these cases that are here, man, if you've been sitting for 30, 40 years on something, it's never too late. It's never too late. There are people waiting, longing to see some sort of information about their family members. I carried that pain in my heart of my brother for 18 years, and, you know, it finally came. And so I know there's other people just waiting for some sliver of hope, and you might be the one with that. So if you have any information with these cases, I encourage you to come forward, reach out, especially if you're a leader in the local church here in Kissimmee, Florida. Reach out to the Sheriff's Department, see how you can get involved to make our city a safer place. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out. Again, we've got the cases here. We're going to list all of our cold cases that are unsolved on our website. There will be 32 cases listed. So if anybody has any tips or information that you can help us with, please contact Crime Line or the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. As the gentleman just said, if you have any information you think may give us any hope, any light into the case, please give us a call. And our challenge to the community is help us help you. If you know any information, have any tips, any leads, please reach out to the Crime Line or the Sheriff's Office. Thank you all for coming.
At news conference in Osceola County wrapping up, we heard from Sheriff Christopher Blackman talking about 2 homicide cases that have now been solved, including the a deadly stabbing in 2007 that killed a 17-year-old DeAndre Nathaniel Wellnitz, a 17-year-old who was at a house party in Kissimmee there. No charges filed in that case. The individual who was accused of doing it was figured out, according to investigators, they believe he did it in self-defense. But you heard there from the mother of the 17-year-old who said it is just, she's now at peace knowing what happened all these years later. There was also an arrest in a deadly shooting from 2022. A 23-year-old man arrested and charged with the death of another 23-year-old, and still a couple of dozen unsolved cold cases in Osceola County that they're trying to get solved with the help of their detectives in the cold case program there. Right now, we're going to step aside, take a quick break here on Florida Live, but we'll be right back. Welcome back into Florida Live. I'm Garrett Weimer. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon, live on Fox Local, YouTube, and on Fox 35 TV. The Major League Baseball winter meetings are going on right now in Orlando. They started earlier this week. They go on through the end of the week, and that brings agents, general managers, free agent players, all of them descending on Orlando to have meetings. You normally see a lot of news come out of these winter meetings, free agent signings, all kinds of things like that. It's just a lot going on, one of the busiest periods in many years in the off season for Major League Baseball. Fox 35's Jonah Karp was at the winter meetings earlier today. He caught up with Tampa Bay Rays legend Kevin Kiermaier, who is trying to be a freelance outfield defensive specialist. He spent some time with the Toronto Blue Jays organization this year and said he wants to be more hands-on in hopes of, quote, revolutionizing outfield defense. Here's a conversation between Fox 35 sports reporter Jonah Karp and Kevin Kiermaier just a little bit ago in Orlando.
I hope they stay in Tampa or St. Pete. Very biased, but I think everyone in that region will agree as well, because there's a lot of baseball fans around there. I understand why a place like this would take a team, but once again, I love the Rays and I hope they stay close to my backyard for as long as possible. But that'll be interesting to see how that stadium and everything unfolds with them. But if they did an expansion team and called it something else, the Orlando Manatees or something, but I hope the Tampa Bay Rays are in that area for a long time.
What was your experience like playing the majority of your career?
It was home to me. That's where I was born in 1990 in Indiana, but I feel like I was born into my baseball world 2014 at Tropicana Field, and that's where my career started, and that was my home away from home, and the Rays gave me the world, and I tried giving it right back to them, and I loved them. I still do, but it was I cared about that organization and more than anyone, and I was very proud of that, and I'll love them forever.
What's it like raising a family?
Amazing. I never thought I would do it, but shortly into my major league career, I said, I could envision myself being around here for a long time, and then I ended up meeting my wife and having 3 kids, and so here we are. But it's a great place to raise kids, a ton to do, and like I said, now that I'm retired, I can still drive down the street and go watch a baseball game for an organization that I love, so I'm a lucky man.
What's the next step in your journey, Kevin? Are you focused on coaching now?
Yeah, I did something outfield specialist with the Blue Jays last year, and this year I said I need more on my plate, and I want to maximize my potential with trying to help the outfielders from a defensive standpoint, and I want to offer my services and coach these guys up to try to do all the things that I did that helped me be so successful, that wasn't really going by the book and just kind of doing what I thought made sense. And I want to apply that to the players nowadays and show these organizations that certain coaching can make a big impact. And I know as far as outfield defense, I'm the best available, and I want to show people what I can do and how I can hopefully change some careers for guys who are like a defender away type of player. Or say, hey, you get around the right person, some great things can happen. So that's what I want to do. Freelance outfield specialist.
That's interesting.
Yeah, never been done before.
No.
But there's hitting coaches that everyone goes to all across the country and this and that, and there's guys who certainly need to be better defenders. And when that happens, it's just, hey, let's show up to spring training. Let's try to be better this year. It's very surfacey. And then you have someone like me who can break it down and really dig deep into outfield defense, and there's so many different things that we can improve on that I have the expertise for, and I want to help players who are motivated and want to be better in that area.
So did you not have people who you leaned on for defensive help when you were playing?
No, it was something that always came pretty natural to me, to be honest, and had a really good idea what I wanted to do. But as I got older, I felt like the more experience I got, the more smarter I got in how I wanted to do things, and I realized that I could be creative with my thoughts to make me good out there in the field. And once again, not going by the book or doing what everyone else does. I wanted to go out there and say, hey, I want to come out here and be athletic and not think and just have all my athleticism translate into being the best outfielder possible, and so many other things that go into it as well. But you got to love it. I was obsessed with it, obsessed with working on my craft every day, every year of my career. And now that I can't apply it to myself anymore, I want to help the next group of guys coming up, and try to get to as many guys as I can.
Do you feel like we're in a setting right now when meetings where players' value is being talked about? Do you feel like when you were going through your own contract negotiations, was defense not valued as much as offense?
Well, the nature of the game, if offense is number one, but if you have guys like me, I played almost 11 years in the major leagues because of my defense. That helped me stay on the field, and it allowed me to get away with things with the bat. And there's other guys who hit 40, 50 homers who don't need to be the best defenders or certain things like that. So, yeah, if I wanted to get paid more, I probably should have hit more homers, but everything in my career worked out great, and I'm proud of what I accomplished. But once again, I developed an expertise with outfield defense, and it's what I know best, and I want to provide that to the next group. They don't want to hear what I have to say in the batting cages, but when I put a glove on, I stand out there, I would think guys should listen to what I have to offer.
Best defensive outfielder of all time, in your opinion?
Gosh, I'd say the last 10 years I would like to be put in that combo. I know I wasn't the best player, but when you talk about defense and the numbers and what I did out there, I think it'll back it up for itself. But Willie Mays, I watched highlights of him. He was incredible. Andrew Jones is the first name that spoke to me, but Torrey Hunter was one of my favorites to watch. Jim Edmonds. But I think statistically, and if you're looking at all that, Willie Mays or Andrew Jones, they played so long and were elite for their whole careers. And I did the same thing. I just played about half the time as them. But for the amount I was out there, I feel like I was one of the most impactful outfielders to ever play the game, and I'm very proud of that.
In the way that would like mimic a Gary Sheffield type swing or Mark Teixeira, did you look at players' defense and how they position themselves in the field, and you said, I want to mimic what they're doing?
In a way, like I'd see certain guys rob homers and make catches, and you always want to do that. But for me, defense is more about you got to have the physical tools and the focus and all that, but it's a mindset more than anything. Which sounds crazy, but I went out there and I said I'm going to be ready for every pitch of my career. I just held myself to a standard that I don't think most guys do. But once again, it was for me, like when I got drafted and when I got shortly into my minor league career, I said, man, I think I could be one of the best defensive players on the planet. And then shortly into my career, I said, I know I'm not in the major leagues, but when I get to the major leagues, if I do, I'm going to show everyone how great I am out here. And my product that I put on the field just meant the world to me. It's something I take more pride than anything my whole life, and I wanted to never have a weakness out there. Going left, right, charging balls, playing balls by the wall, arm strength, accuracy. I didn't want to have one weakness, and I know I didn't. And I made sure that there was no way you were going to expose me out there, and I was going to help us a lot more than I was going to hurt us.
Tampa Bay Rays legend Kevin Kiermaier speaking about what he hopes to do in his next phase. Speaking with him at the Orlando, the winter meetings, Major League Baseball winter meetings going on right now in Orlando. We will have more from the winter meetings on the other side of this break, so keep it here on Florida Live, and we'll be right back after this. Welcome back into Florida Live. Garrett Weimer here. Again, the MLB winter meetings continuing in Orlando this week. And Fox 35 sports reporter Jonah Karp also had the chance to speak with Scott Boras, one of the highest profile sports agents in the country. Talked with him briefly about when we could see the first $1 billion player contract and also the potential future of Major League Baseball in Orlando.
Basically putting a cap on his salary early in his career, knowing that the salaries will appreciate in the market. So we had a first $30 million player that I did was Max Scherzer. Then 6 years later, we had $36 million with Garrett Cole because the revenues of the teams went from $9 billion to $11 billion. And then you have Juan Soto is now in the 50s because the revenues went from $11 billion to $14 billion. So the gradient of growth in the game really is relative to the good business decisions of owners to go get the greatest young stars of the game, but also do it in a long-term fashion because I then have him committed to my franchise at a price specific, knowing that the revenues will graduate and the average annual values of players will graduate as the years go on.
There's a lot of chatter this offseason about Orlando potentially getting a Major League Baseball team. Why would that work?
Well, Orlando is the one city in America where the traffic here is, I think, like 80 million tourists come to this town. So it has a monumental draw for, and a lot of that is in the summer, I'm told. So it has a great draw for packages, for fans to visit all the entertainment communities here, see Major League Baseball. So it's a market that really would advance that thought.
It certainly seems to make sense in a lot of ways, and we would certainly love to see it. But cool conversation there with Scott Boras, again, one of the highest profile sports agents in the country, who is here alongside many others, officials and big names in Major League Baseball for those winter meetings going on this week. And if you're a baseball fan, you've already seen a lot of big news come out of those winter meetings, and more conversations continuing to happen. We might see some more free agent signings over the next week with those winter meetings continuing. Well, thanks for joining us here on Florida Live and for the past 4 hours on Fox Local with Fox 35 News Plus and also with now Florida Live. We are out of time for today, but if you're watching on Fox Local, we've got Fox 35 Weather Plus coming up next, and we'll be back at 11 a.m. tomorrow with more Fox 35 News Plus. But the news, weather, and sports coverage live streaming on Fox Local never stops, so you can keep it right on here. As we wrap up for the day, going to give you this live look at International Drive from our camera there, sponsored by Airport Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for joining us.